Chapter 841. The Six-Armed Woman and the Frost Man had ugly expressions. They looked at the black-robed man angrily. Our encampment is extremely important. There are only 90 encampments in the entire 7-star oceanic sacred world. It is the core of our mission. The Frost Man transmitted solemnly. Now that the inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple has arrived outside our encampment, this encampment has already been exposed. The only thing we can do now is to minimize our losses. The black-robed man gritted his teeth and transmitted solemnly. This has nothing to do with me. The first thing he wanted to do was push the blame away. The six-armed woman and the Frost Man glanced at him, but did not say anything, because the final punishment would be decided by the upper echelons of the ancient sacred religion. The black-robed man, sacred emissary Ying, had provoked the inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple, Ying, when he was preaching in the Golden Wing Nation. Now that sacred emissary Ying had just returned to the encampment, Ying had already arrived. As long as one was not a fool, they could guess that Ying was following them in the dark. Perhaps he had left some sort of tracking imprint on sacred emissary Ying. Immediately lead the other sacred emissaries to the underground sacred palace. The Frost Man ordered, move the sacred master sculpture as fast as possible. Once it's done, immediately teleport away. Yes, the six-armed woman and the black-robed man, sacred emissary Ying acknowledged. Why was there only 90 encampments in the vast 7-star oceanic sacred world? It was because every encampment required a sacred master sculpture. No matter if it was to communicate with the distant ancient sacred world, or to control many cultivators, they required the help of the sacred master sculpture. In the Golden Wing Nation, controlling the cultivators was a low-level method. It could only control the weaker cultivators. Even true god rulers could resist it. Only a few with weak spirit cultivation could not resist it. And the moment they arrived in front of the sacred master sculpture, by borrowing the power of the sacred master sculpture, there were some extremely strong true god rulers with strong spirit cultivation. Even Origin Birth Realm and Unity Realm existences with weaker minds could generally be forcefully controlled. By branding their souls, they would be absolutely loyal to the sacred master. Even though Ying is here, I'm afraid he doesn't dare to be absolutely certain that this is an important base of our ancient saint religion, the cold-looking man said. I'll go deal with him, and try my best to delay for time. If we can kill him, it will be a great merit. The black-robed man, sacred emissary Ying said. Kill an inner hall elder? Their life-saving methods are very powerful. The man with the frost aura was rather furious. Even if they succeeded in moving the sacred leader's statue, they would still have to give up this base. The ancient saint cult would still punish them. If they couldn't even protect the sacred leader's statue, the punishment would be terrifying. Whoosh! The Frost Man immediately flew out of the dark hall. The six-armed woman and the black-robed divine emissary Ban Yin immediately took action. They even sent voice transmissions to the other divine emissaries, telling them to quickly head to the underground holy palace. They had to move the sacred leader's statue as soon as possible. White-robed Ying stood in the air and stared at the black city in front of him. He directly unleashed his plate ripple diagram, sending out formless ripples. However, the black city was actually blocked by the revolving arrays. Who dares to invade my Black Mountain City? A figure flew out. It was that Frost Man. He was emitting a grand aura, causing the surrounding void to be filled with ice and snow. This Frost Man frowned and roared out. Who are you? White-robed Ying was too lazy to delay for time. He was clear that the most important thing in the base of the ancient sacred religion was the sacred leader statue. Even though it would take some time to move the sacred leader statue, it wouldn't take too long. Hong! Ying extended his right hand, causing a command token to appear. It was the identity token of an inner hall elder. The command token was grand and emitting a terrifying aura. There was even a towering and dazzling illusory palace that appeared behind Ying. This illusory aura was filled with a suppressive force. It was comparable to the aura of primal chaos experts. This was the illusory image of the Great Void Heaven Temple. It could not be faked. I am an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Dongbo Shuang directly roared out. Hurry up and remove the array of your Black Mountain City. If anyone disobeys, it is equivalent to disobeying my Great Void Heaven Temple. All of you will be treated as members of the ancient sacred religion, and will be killed without mercy. An inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple? The Frost Man paled when he saw that. He hurriedly replied respectfully, This Sir Elder, I am currently cultivating in seclusion here. Why is Sir Elder? Don't speak nonsense. Dongbo Shuang frowned. His eyebrows were like the edge of a sword. He did not want to let this Frost Man drag for more time. Hurry up and remove the array. I am currently refining a precious treasure. My countless years of hard work are all concentrated in this cauldron. I can't. The Frost Man still wanted to delay. Kill. A cold light flashed in the eyes of Dongbo Shuang. Even though he did not have absolute confidence that this Black City was an important base of the ancient sacred religion, he was 70 to 80% confident. Furthermore, that black-robed man had entered previously. Now that he had revealed his identity, the black-robed man did not allow him to investigate. There must be a problem. Xiao xiao xiao. Accompanied by Dongbo Shuiying's furious roar, a dense number of 300 deep violet fishes flew out from Dongbo Shuiying's body. All of them charged towards the Frost Man. At the same time, countless translucent ripples wrapped around the Frost Man. The Frost Man shouted, Sir Elder, I am refining a precious treasure. My incarnation is currently in front of the cauldron. I cannot be affected. As he shouted, the Frost Man immediately resisted. A crystal-clear armor condensed on the surface of his body. At the same time, an ice sword appeared in his hands. Even though his body was being wrapped by the countless ripples, he still instantly brandished his sword. Shwa! The space started to freeze, forming a restriction that affected the surrounding ripples. It also affected the incoming Terminus soldiers, causing their speed to decrease greatly. At the same time, a dazzling sword light shot towards the incoming Terminus soldiers. 300 deep violet fishes surged forth like a school of fishes. Instantly, they clashed with the sword light of the ice sword. Many of the Terminus soldiers that were already slowed down were destroyed by the sword light. However, there were 4 deep violet fishes whose aura suddenly surged. Xiao, 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 xiao. It was as though 4 mystical dragons streaked across the sky and directly attacked the Frost Man. Even though the Frost Man's speed was greatly affected by the ripples, he still wielded the ice sword in his hands brazenly and blocked the extremely ferocious 4 mystical dragon-like Terminus soldiers. These 4 Terminus soldiers were executing the third sword of the 13 apocalyptic swords. This was also the reason why there were only 300 fishes. It was because if he executed too many Terminus soldiers, it would be too taxing on his mental strength. He would not be able to execute the apocalyptic third sword easily. Bang 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 bang. The cold sword light refracted time and time again. The Frost Man's sword light was very strange. It actually blocked the attacks of 4 Terminus soldiers at the same time. Even though the other Terminus soldiers also surrounded him, they were unable to break through his ice armor. They only affected his speed. Occasionally, he would be hit by the apocalyptic third sword, and a hole would appear on his body. Suddenly, the densely packed fishes all disappeared. All that was left were the 4 mystical dragon-like Terminus soldiers attacking him. In the distance, Dongbo Shuang had also disappeared into thin air. Shua! In an instant, Dongbo Shuang appeared by the Frost Man's side and thrusted his spear furiously. Teleportation. The Frost Man laughed coldly. Without the influence of so many fishes, he was still able to block Dongbo Shuiying's spear, while blocking the 4 Terminus soldiers. Boom! At the moment when he blocked the spear, another spear thrusted out from the void. It was too sudden, because he was already dealing with the 4 Terminus soldiers, and had to use all his strength to block the spear. He did not have enough time to block the last spear, that appeared at such a close distance. However, the Frost Man still calmly used his body to block the spear, because he had previously blocked the apocalyptic third sword's Terminus soldiers. Boom! The spear pierced into the Frost Man's body, causing his expression to change. Wrong. He was ridiculously wrong. This spear was a high-grade void divine weapon. The spearhead was covered with terminus soldiers. Furthermore, the terrifying energy contained within the 28th level of Walker's hidden secret was completely imbued into this spear, allowing the apocalyptic third sword to be unleashed. It was much stronger than the apocalyptic third sword executed purely with the terminus soldiers. His body was instantly torn apart, and the destructive energy engulfed his body. Pung pung pung, because his body was torn apart, Dongbo Shui Ying's spear immediately emitted many strands of terminus soldiers. Many terminus soldiers' fishes were crazily destroying his body. Dongbo Shuang also thrusted out his spear 3 times at lightning speed. Just after the third spear, the shattered body of the Frost Man dissipated. He was still filled with disbelief and despair. He did not believe that he would lose to an origin birth realm void god. Even if he was an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple, he was only at the origin birth realm. Dongbo Shuang watched coldly at everything. He had gotten through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda without cultivating the plate ripple diagram. Currently, with the plate ripple diagram restricting the other party could only unleash part of his strength. It was normal for him to die. Saying it was slow, but in reality, the battle between Dongbo Shuang and the Frost Man was extremely fast. First, it was a group attack followed by close combat. Not even a breath of time had passed before the other party died. Not good. The expression of the 6-armed girl, who was already in the sacred palace hall beneath the Black City, changed greatly. She relied on the warning array to see that the Frost Man had died. Chapter 842. The underground sanctum was very spacious. There was a towering statue in the center of the temple. Around it, the walls of the temple actually had a total of 8 statue phantoms surrounding the statue in the center. As long as one entered the underground sacred hall, there would be towering statues in all directions. There would be an invisible power permeating the entire sacred hall. At this moment, dozens of holy envoys were gathered here. They were rapidly dismantling the holy temple. In order to allow the sacred Lord statue to unleash enough power to control even stronger cultivators, the sacred Lord statue had to be extremely powerful. That was why the holy temple had to be built to fuse with it. Now, it had to be dismantled, or else it would be impossible to take away the holy Lord statue. The first city lord is dead? The group of holy envoys were all a little shocked. It was too fast. The first city lord died too fast. The black-robed man, sacred emissary Qi Yin, glanced at the 6-armed lady beside him and snorted coldly. If you had gone to deal with that Dongbo Shuang of the Great Void Heaven Temple, you wouldn't have been defeated so quickly even if you had joined hands. The 6-armed woman was truly furious. For so many years, he had been tolerating him. This time, his encampment was exposed because of sacred envoy Qi Yin. Now he was blaming him for not going out to fight. You fool. If I were to fight with you, even a fool would be able to guess that this is an extremely important place, with 2 peak Unity Realm experts appearing at the same time. The 6-armed lady was furious. If there was only one expert heading out, it could still be explained as an expert living in seclusion. Both of them were at the peak of the Unity Realm. When had peak Unity Realm experts become so common? You actually dare? The black-robed sacred envoy Qi Yun was enraged. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and move the Holy Master's statue. The 6-armed woman shouted angrily. She didn't care anymore. As her companion had died too quickly, the 6-armed woman vaguely knew that the possibility of moving the sacred master's sculpture away was rather low. Even if she managed to escape with her life, the sacred master's sculpture would be destroyed, and the punishment from the ancient saint cult would be worse than death. Moreover, even if she managed to survive, her life would be even more miserable. The absolute loyalty that came from her soul caused her to never think of leaving the ancient sacred cult. Even though she was in despair, she was willing to accept the punishment. However, when it came to Saint Envoy Qi Yin, she only felt rage. Hurry, hurry, hurry. The 6-armed woman shouted angrily with a ferocious expression. All the sacred envoys were doing their best to dismantle the sacred hall. They had even sent out their incarnations, but the construction of the sacred hall was too complicated. Only those at the Unity realm could barely dismantle it, and they needed some time to do so. Block him. We need to stall for time. I hope he's greedy for credit, and hasn't reported this to the Great Void Heaven Temple. The six-armed woman was filled with anticipation. In the night sky. Equipment spirit. Can you find out what's going on inside the Black City? Dongbo Shuang asked. This won't do. There are invisible ripples that are obstructing my probing. The Black Gourd's probing ability was very formidable. However, even when facing an important encampment of the ancient sacred cult, it was still incapable of probing it. Dongbo Shuang waved his hand and kept the items left behind by the Frost Man. Then, without hesitation, he attacked with all his might. Boom boom boom. Countless dark purple fishes attacked the same spot in a frenzy. Ripples appeared on the surface of the Black City, and the hidden spell formation was revealed, forcefully resisting the attack of the dark purple fishes. Boom! Dongbo Shuang attacked with his spear as well. Under the attacks of the dark purple spear, the array only shook slightly. However, it wasn't able to break through the spell formation. Its defense is pretty strong. Dongbo Shuang frowned. Use your final killing move. If it doesn't work, I can only report it upwards. Since he didn't have full confidence in his investigation, Dongbo Shuang wasn't too willing to report it upwards. However, the encampment of the ancient sacred cult was extremely important. The reward from the Great Void Heaven Temple was 1 million contribution points. That was equivalent to 100 Origin World rocks. It was said that the price that the ancient sacred world had to pay to construct an encampment was 10 times that of 100 Origin World rocks. It was said that the most precious thing was that sculpture of the Saint Master. Dongbo Shuang flipped his hand, and a black gourd appeared in his hand. In the underground sacred palace, while the six-armed woman was also rapidly dismantling the sacred palace, she was also making use of the spell formation to observe the movements in the outside world. That Origin Birth Stage Inner Hall Elder, Dongbo Shuang, of the Great Void Heaven Temple, attacked the spell formation twice before giving up. Instead, he took out a black gourd. Black gourd? The six-armed woman was puzzled. What treasure is that? Fortunately, as long as he doesn't report it upwards, we still have hope. The six-armed woman hoped silently, following which, she discovered that the white-robed Dongbo Shuang had pulled out the stopper of the black gourd. Pa! The stopper was pulled out. Dongbo Shuang revealed a look of anticipation. Hong! A fiery red crystal ball the size of a finger flew out from the mouth of the black gourd. At the instant it flew out, it expanded rapidly. In an instant, it had already transformed into a huge fireball with a diameter of 10,000 li. As for Dongbo Shuang, he had already entered the core of this huge fireball. The huge fireball illuminated the night sky, causing the originally dark night to become dazzling. Countless gray ripples surged, and there was even a fiery liquid tumbling around. Countless void divine runes flowed on its surface. Countless void divine runes densely covered the entire huge fireball. It completely suppressed and controlled the tyrannical power of the fireball. The profoundness of the void divine runes was even greater than the fireball. Countless densely packed void divine runes rippled and directly penetrated the spell formation below, and even spread to the underground sacred palace below. Moreover, its area of influence was extremely large. It continued to spread, and an area of 10,000 li was under its control. Void spell formation. Dongbo Shuang was inside the fireball, and he could not help but exclaim when he sensed the huge void spell formation. It was this void spell formation that perfectly controlled the celestial body that was comparable to his hometown sun star. Being a void walker who had reached the final realm, Guqi, his attainments in the void had reached an unfathomable realm. By relying on the void spell formation, Dongbo Shuang could control an area of 10,000 li. Furthermore, he could use the ultra-long distance Great Void teleportation. This was his strongest escape technique, controlling the fireball and controlling the void spell formation to escape. The fireball could protect him, and the spell formation could allow him to escape quickly. Unless the true body of a primal chaos realm giant appeared, it was practically impossible to deal against him. Within the underground sacred palace, the six-armed girl and the black-robed male revealed looks of terror and despair. They could feel the surrounding space solidifying. An incomparably terrifying void suppression was descending. Teleport, hurry up and teleport. The black-robed male immediately tried to control the teleportation treasure given to him by his elder brother. But no matter how he activated it, he could not teleport at all. The black gourd was a protective treasure. Only when Dongbua Shuiying became a void god could he unleash its third-level power, which was also its final power. The power of the fireball could be completely controlled, and the void array could be completely activated too. This was a void array personally constructed by Guqi. Even a primal chaos realm giant would have to rely on his strength to tear apart the void in order to escape from this void suppression. In terms of pure control of the void, it could not be compared with this array. We can't escape anymore. The six-armed girl's face was filled with despair. This void suppression was too strong. Hong, the white-robed Dongbua Shuiying, was within this enormous fireball with a diameter of 5,000 kilometers. He controlled this terrifying fireball to descend abruptly. This was simply a furious smash from the entire sun star. Furthermore, the power of the sun star was too scattered, and the power of this fireball was completely converged into one under the control of the void spell formation. Its power had reached the primal chaos realm. It was just that he was lacking in terms of realm. He could only use the most barbaric technique, and could not fight against the true body of a primal chaos realm giant. But against a unity realm expert, it could sweep across all. Pooh! Even though the array of the Black City was firm, it shattered under the descent of this enormous fireball. The entire Black City trembled under such power. Chapter 843. A large group of sacred followers lived within the Black City. They flew out like locusts, and when they looked up and saw that huge fireball that was emitting endless heat, they were completely frightened. After all, the strength of the sacred followers was much weaker. The strongest among them were ordinary void gods, and most were true gods. Facing the terrifying suppression from a primal chaos realm, they could not help but feel despair in their hearts. This is more terrifying than the sun star in the sky. Too frightening. These sacred followers did not have any thoughts of resisting. That huge fireball suddenly shrunk. It turned into a dazzling rainbow light before smashing down on the ground at the core of the entire Black City. Sacred Palace. It's the Sacred Palace. Hurry up and stop him. The eyes of these sacred followers turned red at that moment. The loyalty that came from their souls made them disregard their fear and rush in the direction of the underground sacred palace. In their subconscious, even if they died, they would protect the sacred palace well. Dongbua Shuiying had easily grasped the situation within a region of 5 million kilometers through the void array. Naturally, he discovered this underground sacred palace. The huge fireball rapidly shrunk before smashing down, destroying many mechanisms and restrictions along the way to the underground sacred palace. The ultimate power of the black gourd relied on hiding within the fireball for protection, and relying on the entire fireball to smash down. It was a simple smash, yet its power was horrifying. The fireball that was comparable to the sun star rapidly shrunk. It was completely condensed into a smash. In terms of brute force, it was absolutely at the level of a primal chaos realm giant. Within the underground sacred palace. Not good he is here. The six-armed girl trembled slightly as she looked outside the palace door. The black-robed sacred emissary Qi Yun and the other sacred emissaries could feel a terrifying power destroying all obstructions leading to the underground sacred palace. Hong Long Long. The fireball that shrunk to a diameter of 100 meters appeared by the entrance of the sacred palace. It rolled in. This fireball was dazzling. Even the group of sacred emissaries found it dazzling. Within the fireball, there was a figure faintly visible. It's over. The six-armed girl could not summon any thoughts of resisting. Just like a peak Unity Realm expert who passed through the third level of Star Pagoda. Facing an ordinary Unity Realm expert at the first level of Star Pagoda, it would be a large-scale massacre. And those who had passed through the fifth level of Star Pagoda and reached the boundary of the Primal Chaos Realm could easily slaughter peak Unity Realm experts. Even if they faced a true Primal Chaos Realm expert, it was still possible for them to escape. The fireball from the Black Gourd was comparable to a level 6 fireball in terms of pure power, but it was much weaker in terms of technique. Overall, it was comparable to a level 5 fireball. With this Black Gourd, as long as his Primal Chaos true body did not act, he would not have to worry about self-preservation. From this, it could be seen that the ultimate existence, Gu Dai, valued and cherished his disciples very much. Eldest brother. The black-robed man, sacred emissary Qi Yin, anxiously sent a message for help. His elder brother was in the faraway ancient saint world, and it was extremely difficult to send a message from such a far distance. The members of the ancient saint cult who were stationed here would usually communicate with the ancient saint world through the sacred leader's statue. There were only 3 who could contact the ancient saint world with their own communication treasures. Other than the Frost Man and the 6-armed woman, there was only sacred envoy Qi Yin. His communication treasure was personally bestowed by his elder brother. Big brother, save me, save me. Sacred emissary Qi Yin was currently in complete despair and fear. He didn't know what to do as he couldn't see any hope of escaping. The void was completely suppressed, and there was no way to teleport. He could only fly slowly. Fly. Escape from this elder Dongbua, who was controlling these terrifying fireballs? The 6-armed woman glanced at sacred envoy Qi Yin. Seeing how anxious he was, she couldn't help but laugh coldly as she transmitted a message. Fool! You won't be able to escape. Even if your elder brother wants to save you, he's far away in the ancient saint world, and won't be able to rush over. Boom! The rolling fireballs were extremely fast as they smashed onto the bodies of the sacred envoys. The heat of the fireballs was secondary. The most important thing was the strength of the collision. Pung, 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 pung. The fireballs were like illusions as they collided continuously. Dongbua Shuang smashed his way through. As long as the sacred envoys were hit, their bodies would be smashed into smithereens. However, the items that they were carrying were still protected by Dongbua Shuang using the void array. Pung. The black-robed sacred envoy Qi Yin was the 3rd sacred envoy to be struck by the fireball. The surface of his body was covered with a protective layer of light. However, the first strike from the fireball had caused the black protective layer of light to be smashed into smithereens. After a slight pause, the fireball continued on its way. The black-robed man widened his eyes as he looked at the terrifying fireball crashing towards him. His eyes were filled with despair. Following which, the fireball continued on its way, smashing the black-robed man into smithereens. His items were also absorbed into the fireball by the void array. Dongbua Shuang was within the fireball and wasn't injured at all. His items were absorbed into the fireball one by one. That 6-armed woman was facing the suppression of the fireball. However, she still charged forward in a frenzy. Each of her 6 hands was holding onto a curved blade. For a moment, she turned into a demonic blood light. However, under the suppression of the fireball, her body was still smashed into smithereens. No one could resist it. The black-robed sacred envoy Qi Yin's protective treasure was only able to stop the fireball for a moment. In less than a breath's time, within the underground sacred hall, all the sacred envoys were dead. Within the fireball, Dongbua Shuang looked at the statue of the sacred lord. The statue of the sacred lord looked as though it was carved out of black jade. It was draped in a silk robe, and its eyes were calm, yet seemed to contain boundless profoundness. Looking at this statue of the sacred lord would cause one to feel an uncontrollable urge to submit to it. Sacred lord, Dongbua Shuang thought. The one who monopolizes the entire ancient saint world. The undisputed strongest expert amongst the final realm existences. Boom. Without any hesitation, Dongbua Shuang controlled the fireball and charged over. Boom! The fireball slammed onto the statue of the sacred lord. The statue of the sacred lord was one with the entire sacred hall. It was completely fixed and hard to move. However, the sacred envoys had already dismantled a portion of the sacred hall earlier on. At this moment, The full force of the fireball still caused the statue of the sacred lord to be sent flying. It then slammed into a wall far away before falling down. Both of the statue's legs were still connected to the black metal. There was even a dent on the chest area of the statue. Based on the intelligence, the statue of the sacred lord must be destroyed after obtaining it. Dongbo Shuang thought. However, it seems to be quite sturdy. My full force strike only caused a dent? South Dongbo Shuang controlled the void, and kept the statue of the sacred lord into a brand new paradise treasure. It's better to send it back to the Great Void Heaven Temple, and let the Sky Palace slowly destroy it. Dongbo Shuang thought to himself. After a simple check on this tattered underground sacred hall, Dongbo Shuang rode on the fireball and flew out. With a whoosh, he shot up into the sky, and flew out along the passage he came from. In the outside world, within the Black City, a large group of holy disciples were originally rushing over. However, the moment the statue of the sacred lord was sent flying, all of them stopped in their tracks as a look of despair appeared on their faces. Sacred Lord! Sacred Lord! All of the holy disciples stood up solemnly. Their hands formed seals as they called out Sacred Lord, following which their bodies disintegrated into nothingness. When Dongbo Shuang kept the statue of the sacred lord, and rode on the fireball to fly out, he saw a large number of holy disciples standing within the Black City. Their faces were filled with holiness, as their bodies disintegrated into nothingness. Dongbo Shuang watched everything silently. All the holy disciples within the Black City had died. All of them had turned into nothingness. Currently, there was only Dongbo Shuang left alive within the Black City. The fireball floated within the Black City. Dongbo Shuang looked at the deathly silent Black City. The ancient sacred religion and ancestor mother religion deserve death. Dongbo Shuang muttered. They wantonly spread their religion, and even controlled many cultivators, forcing them to be absolutely loyal to the sacred lord and ancestor mother. If they were not controlled, why would they die just because the statue of the sacred lord was snatched away? Chapter 844. Within the Cultivation Eden Treasure, several dozen cages were filled with cultivators. More than half of them were true god rulers, and a small portion were void gods. They were temporarily brought along by the black-robed sacred emissary Qi Yin. When he was spreading his religion, he felt that he could not control them by relying on the cages alone. Thus, he temporarily brought them along with him, and prepared to control them through the underground sacred palace. Nevertheless, this time, when he returned to the base in a sorry state, Dongbo Shuang came attacking, until the black-robed sacred emissary Qi Yin died, because he was focused on moving the sacred master sculpture at the start, and later on, he was facing death and despair. He had forgotten that there were still cultivators imprisoned within the Cultivation Eden Treasure. In his heart they were all ants. He had only brought along those with high talents for the sake of earning contribution points. Fortunately, they are still alive. After refining the Cultivation Eden Treasure, Dongbo Shuang sent his consciousness into this Cultivation Eden Treasure. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. Qing Rua is also alive. Because of that muscular male Lei Chen, Dongbo Shuang had deliberately collected intelligence on his wife, Qing Rua. Knowing the appearance of the other party, Dongbo Shuang was able to immediately recognize Qing Rua within one of the cages. Dongbo Shuang's energy descended. Many cages were opened, and the cultivators whose souls were sealed within were also released by Dongbo Shuang. What is happening? Why did they let us out? These cultivators were slightly dazed. The ancient sacred religion was very cautious. It was impossible for them to release the seals on their souls, because the moment they were released, they could commit suicide at any time. But now that they were released, these cultivators could vaguely guess that they might have been saved. Very soon, I'll bring all of you to the Celestial Water City. By then, all of you will regain your freedom. Dongbo Shuang's voice reverberated within the Cultivation Eden Treasure. We have been saved. Celestial Water City? It must be a special emissary from the Celestial Water City. Haha. They were all excited and overjoyed. These cultivators living in the sacred world had long known how frightening the ancient sacred religion and ancestor mother religion were. The moment they were controlled, they would be absolutely loyal, being true god rulers and void gods, who had cultivated to their current level. They had relatively high talents. Naturally, they would persevere on, and were unwilling to lose themselves. And now they were finally saved. Phew. While the cultivators were excited, Qing Ruo disappeared, and was teleported away. Qing Ruo felt her surroundings change, and she appeared in a dark but slightly dilapidated city. Beside him was a young man dressed in white. Who is he? Qing Ruo was slightly puzzled. The white-robed Shuang stood by the side. With a wave of his hand he released Lei Chun. The burly Lei Chun was very nervous. He was afraid that Elder Dongbo of the Great Void Heaven Temple wouldn't be able to break through this place. He was also afraid that if he breached this place, his wife would be implicated in the battle and die. In any case, Lei Chun's heart was filled with unease. But when Dongbo Shuang released him, and he saw the green-robed woman in front of him, he felt his soul tremble. Qing Ruo. Lei Chun rushed over excitedly. A Chun. Qing Ruo was excited as well. The two of them had been together ever since they were weak. Step by step, they roamed the cosmos together, and experienced many dangers. They also had several fortuitous encounters together. They had long treated the other party as the most important existence in their lives, more important than their own. The two of them could not help but rush together and embrace each other. Not far away, white-robed Dongbo Shuang could not help but reveal a grin when he saw this. Even though all the sacred followers in this city had turned into ashes, he had at least saved some people, including this couple. Looking at this couple, Dongbo Shuang could not help but think about his wife in his hometown cosmos. Jingqiu, how are you? You are in Qingyao. Rest assured, I will bring back the best cultivation materials. Dongbo Shuang thought. Now that he had become an inner hall elder, he was filled with confidence towards the future. This path of cultivation, he would definitely become stronger. Nobody could stop him. Only by becoming stronger would he be able to obtain more valuable treasures and return to meet his wife. Dongbo Shuang flipped his hand, and a message token appeared in his hand. He contacted. Ancestor Demon, I am Dongbo Shuang. What's the matter? Ancestor Demon replied. I have destroyed an important base of the ancient saint religion. Dongbo Shuang replied. This is the address. He sent a message over. An important base of the ancient saint world? Is it a base with a sacred leader sculpture, or just an ordinary base? Ancestor Demon asked. There were a total of 90 bases in the entire 7-star oceanic sacred world, and Dongbo Shuang had destroyed one? Based on what he knew, the base's formation was extremely strong. With Dongbo Shuang's current strength, was he able to destroy the formation? It should be some ordinary small base. I have already obtained the sacred leader sculpture, Dongbo Shuang said. Alright, I will come now. Ancestor Demon no longer had any doubts. The sacred leader sculpture could not be faked. Dongbo Shuang kept the message token. Looking at this silent black city, the east side of the city had already turned white, and the sky was starting to brighten. Hong Long Long, a terrifying will directly descended into the sky, and began to madly control the power of the world and the surroundings. The power of the world surged and gathered, forming a huge whirlpool. The commotion was so great that Lei Chun and Qing Ruo, who were immersed in joy, couldn't help but raise their heads and look into the distance. The whirlpool in the distance was too huge, and its might was terrifying. Elder Dongbo. Lei Chun hurriedly pulled his wife Qing Ruo over. He was a little ashamed. Thank you, Elder Dongbo, for saving me and my wife. The two of us will never forget your kindness. Thank you, Elder Dongbo, for saving us. Qing Ruo said. Dongbo Shuang smiled at the couple. I was just helping out in passing. Speaking of which, I have to thank Lei Chun for helping me find this place. The ancient sacred religion was extremely cautious. It was extremely difficult to find a base. Fortunately, Lei Chun and his wife had a fortuitous encounter that allowed them to sense the soul. The soul sense was too mysterious, and that sacred emissary Qi Yin did not expect it. That was why they were followed by Dongbo Shuang in the dark. That is, Lei Chun and Qing Ruo looked at the whirlpool in shock, but they did not dare to ask. Dongbo Shuang looked up. The whirlpool rapidly condensed and finally formed a black-robed handsome male. He had blood-colored long hair. And when his eyes swept across, Lei Chun and Qing Ruo felt their souls trembling. They did not dare to raise their heads. The white-robed Dongbo Shuang flew up to welcome him. Ancestor Devil, Dongbo Shuang said, because they were in the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Primal Chaos Giants could send their incarnations down. But the incarnations had to control the heaven and earth energy to condense. That was why the commotion was huge. The process of descending would take some time. This was also the reason why every Primal Chaos city would have an incarnation of a Primal Chaos Giant stationed there. Only by stationing there could they immediately engage in battle. And to descend from an ultra-long distance, they had to control the heaven and earth energy to condense their incarnations. For a true powerhouse, they would have long since escaped after killing so many people. Thus, being an inner hall elder, Dongbo Shuiying's identity talisman was also a life-saving talisman. During crucial moments, he would first save his life before summoning others. Even Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master could descend with their incarnations. The speed at which their incarnations descended was much faster. This was also why the ancient sacred religion could only hide in the darkness within the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple, and did not dare to fight openly. Quite formidable. Ancestor Devil looked at Dongbo Shuang. The edge of his lips curled upwards. You broke through an important base of the ancient sacred religion? It was luck. Dongbo Shuang said. He waved his hand and took out the sacred master sculpture. This is the sacred master sculpture. It is harder to destroy. Dongbo Shuang said. Ancestor Devil looked at the dent on the chest of the sacred master sculpture. He could not help but feel slightly startled. He glanced at Dongbo Shuang. It seemed this old friend of his still had some hidden techniques. Otherwise, how could he forcefully break through a base and even damage the sacred master sculpture? Sacred master sculpture. It would be a huge profit if we were to sell it to the ancient sacred world. What a pity that we can't sell it. Ancestor Devil said. We have to bring it back and destroy it. Its toughness is comparable to a middle-grade void god weapon. It isn't easy to destroy it. This incarnation of mine can't deal with it. Ancestor Devil then saw the husband and wife Lei Chun and Qing Ruo in the Black City below. Let them come over. I want to destroy this city. Ancestor Devil said. Dongbo Shuang nodded. He immediately flew over and asked. Lei Chun, are the two of you returning to the Golden Wing Nation or the Celestial Water City? Because of Lei Chun, he was able to achieve great merits. Therefore, he was willing to take a detour for Lei Chun. Lei Chun and Qing Ruo exchanged glances. Lei Chun did not hesitate and said, Elder Dongbo, let's go to the Celestial Water City. They had already planned to go there. Furthermore, they had experienced many difficulties this time around. A small place like the Golden Wing Nation was ultimately too dangerous. If they had the chance to go to the Celestial Water City, they would definitely go there. Even the fees for the teleportation array was waived. All right, the two of you shall wait within the Eden Treasure. Dongbo Shuang kept them into the Eden Treasure and flew back to the side of Ancestor Devil. Ancestor Devil looked down and stretched out his right hand. Hung long long, boundless cold air appeared from the void and rapidly froze the entire Black City. Under the control of Ancestor Devil, the Black City started to let out ka-ka-ka sounds. Finally, many parts of the city started to crumble. In just a short moment, the Black City, along with the broken Sacred Palace Hall, and even the surrounding land, were completely destroyed and turned into nothingness. A huge crater appeared. Let's go. Ancestor Devil brought Dongbo Shuiying and tore open a time-space tunnel. They entered the time-space tunnel and left rapidly. Chapter 845. Ancient Sacred World. The most primitive ancient sacred world had been shattered after a terrifying war. The remaining ancient sacred world was only about 1% of its original size, yet it was still the biggest of the 5 great sacred worlds. Many beings were living in the ancient sacred world. This was also the most peaceful place. The cultivators did not kill each other. Regardless of whether it was 10,000 years, a million years, or more than 100 million years, there was not a single cultivator who would kill each other in the entire ancient sacred world. Everyone lived peacefully like a family. Even though the sun star was hanging high up in the sky, there were still many black light rays spreading out from the center of the ancient sacred world in all directions, enveloping the entire ancient sacred world. Even the light from the sun star could not suppress this black light. If one said that the sacred master sculpture could control the cultivators, then the black light emitted from the center of the ancient sacred world was not any weaker than that of the sacred master sculpture. Nonetheless, the area it spread out was much wider. Every single cultivator in the ancient sacred world was covered by the black light, and every single cultivator, no matter if they were weak transcendents or powerful primal chaos realm giants, was filled with absolute loyalty to the sacred master. In the outer world, the ancient sacred religion had to be secretive in spreading their religion, but in the ancient sacred world, every single cultivator was a believer of the sacred master. In the ancient sacred world, ripples formed on a quiet lake. A figure flew out from the bottom of the lake. He had violet hair that draped over his shoulders. He was wearing a green robe that was embroidered with a strange pattern. His eyes were filled with deep pain. "My little brother," the violet-haired male muttered softly. He had just received the cry for help from his little brother. Big brother, save me, save me. Big brother, save me." The cry for help from his little brother made him anxious. He was trying his best to understand the situation and save his little brother. But closely following that, he discovered that his little brother had died. The base where his little brother was at had been destroyed. The eyes of the violet-haired male were filled with unconcealable grief. He only had his little brother as a relative. When they were young, he and his little brother were a pair of proud sons of heaven. But as their realms grew, he gradually left his little brother behind. Currently, he had reached the primal chaos realm and was ranked as a saint in the ancient sacred religion. And his little brother was a void god. His little brother was very strong too. He even went to dangerous places to spread his religion and temper himself. He couldn't stop his younger brother, so he could only give him some protective treasures. But now his heart was completely cold. "My little brother, no matter who killed you, he will definitely die. He will definitely accompany you in death," the purple-haired man said softly. On the other side of the ancient saint world, in the sky above the majestic black palaces, the power of the heaven and earth was gathering into a vortex. Gradually a figure was formed. It was none other than that purple-haired man. Swoosh! A figure also flew out from the black palace complex. It was a man in golden armor. "Saint Wang Ming, why are you here?" the golden-armored man asked. "My younger brother is dead. His base has been destroyed. The one who killed him was the inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple, Dongbua Shuang," the purple-haired man said. "I hope that the sect can send a small team of holy punishment to the 7-star oceanic sacred world to find an opportunity to eliminate Dongbua Shuang. Other than me wanting to take revenge for my younger brother, this Dongbua Shuang has a high innate talent. It would be good if we could eliminate him earlier. Furthermore, since his base has been destroyed, it is time for us to retaliate." The golden-armored man frowned slightly when he heard that. A puny origin birth realm inner hall elder isn't worth worrying about. Even if there is an additional primal chaos realm expert, he isn't worth mentioning to the sacred master. What kind of existence was the sacred master? He was the strongest expert amongst the final realm existences. With his strength alone, the other 4 great sacred worlds were helpless against him. The purple-haired man said, "Our base has been destroyed. Should we act as if nothing happened? That is the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple. It isn't suitable for us to fight them head-on. We can only spread our religion in secret. If our base is destroyed by them, we can only blame ourselves for not being careful enough," the golden-armored man said. "In the 7-star oceanic sacred world, the more we fight, the greater our losses will be. After all, they can easily send incarnations over." The purple-haired man understood this point, but did he have to personally kill his way over? He wasn't confident in sending his incarnations over. As for his true body, even if he successfully killed Dongbua Shuang, the incarnations of forefather Tian Yu, and the sword master would immediately descend. His true body wouldn't be able to escape, and at that time, he would definitely lose his life. Saint Wang Ming, the golden-armored man, said, "The internal laws of the religion are very strict. I can't go against them. You can only think of a solution for this matter." The purple-haired man frowned. "For instance, the Myriad World Tavern. It will definitely be able to satisfy you." The golden-armored man smiled. "Myriad World Tavern?" The purple-haired man continued frowning. The Myriad World Tavern was very mysterious. There were very few who knew of its existence. Usually, only the true higher-ups of the 5 great sacred worlds and primal chaos void would know of its existence. Dongbua Shueying only knew of the existence of the Myriad World Tavern from the information given by his master, Gu Qi. This was because the entire ancient sacred world was enveloped by the radiance of the sacred master. Hence, there wasn't a Myriad World Tavern in the ancient sacred world. On a primal chaos land not far away from the ancient sacred world, there was a flourishing city that specialized in trading. Many cultivators of the ancient sacred world would come here to trade. Hence, there was a Myriad World Tavern here. Who? The purple-haired man walked within the city. Soon, he arrived in front of a simple and unadorned restaurant. The restaurant looked ordinary, but the name on it was very domineering. Myriad World. The interior of the restaurant was empty. There wasn't a single customer. The purple-haired man walked in and swept his gaze around. He saw an old man who was half asleep on a chair at a table in the corner. This old man was also the owner of the restaurant. Myriad World Tavern Master. The purple-haired man said. The old man opened his drowsy eyes and glanced at the purple-haired man. He revealed a smile. "This place of mine is very expensive. Downstairs, 1 table for 1 Origin World Rock. Upstairs, 10 Origin World Rocks." This was a very terrifying price. One had to know that when Ancestor Devil brought Dongbua Shueying from the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World to the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World, Ancestor Desert merely collected 30 Origin World Rocks. Purchasing an ordinary Primal Chaos flying ship cost 50 Origin World Rocks. Dongbua Shueying's high-graded Void God weapon cost close to 30 Origin World Rocks. Now just for a meal downstairs, he had to pay an Origin World Rock? Upstairs 10 Origin World Rocks? Even Primal Chaos giants would not be willing to eat like this. Upstairs, the purple-haired man said. The old man chuckled as he stood up. He slowly walked up the stairs. The purple-haired male did not dare to belittle this old man. There were more than 1,000 Myriad World Taverns in the 5 great sacred worlds, and the Primal Chaos Void. And every Myriad World Tavern was filled with this old man. The purple-haired male knew that this old man was one of the final realm existences, Myriad World Tavern Master. He was relatively mysterious. On the 2nd floor of the Myriad World Tavern. Come, have a seat. It has been a long time since I had a customer." Myriad World Tavern Master laughed. He waved his hand and placed a flask of wine and a plate of fruits. The wine was ordinary fruit wine. The fruit was extremely common too. It could even casually eat Transcendence. But these two required 10 Origin World Rocks. The purple-haired male sat down by the table. He looked at the old man who had casually picked up a fruit from the plate and started munching on it. As the old man munched on the fruit, he said, "Say, who do you want to kill?" "Great Void Heaven Temple, Inner Hall Elder, Dongbua Shueying." The purple-haired male said. The old man nodded. "He is a young fellow with great talent. Tian Yu and Sword Master both attach great importance to him. Being an Inner Hall Elder, his survival treasure must be extraordinary. 800 Origin World Rocks. I can send someone to act, but I dare not guarantee an absolute success. If they fail, we will continue the assassination. If they fail 3 times, the mission will end. The other option is 5,000 Origin World Rocks, and Dongbua Shueying will definitely die." The old man looked at the purple-haired male. The face of the purple-haired male twitched. Why did he want the sacred punishment team from the religion to act? It was because the price of the Myriad World Tavern was too ruthless. Being a primal chaos existence, he could only take out 2,000 or so Origin World Rocks at most. Even if he sold all the weapons he used in combat, he would only have about 6,000 Origin World Rocks. 5,000 origin world rocks? Even final realm cosmos gods would feel heartache, but they could still afford it. As for primal chaos existences, it was sufficient for them to sell all their treasures. He is after all an inner hall elder. He will still die. The old man chuckled. This young fellow has quite a lot of connections behind him. I saw how he destroyed your base. And there should be another superpower, not any weaker than the Great Void Heaven Temple behind him. 5,000 origin world rocks isn't high at all. Chapter 846. The violet-haired male hesitated before asking. 800 origin world rocks. How confident are the people you sent? Every time they act, they should have 50% confidence. The old man said. If they fail 3 times consecutively, the mission will end. Also, if he enters closed-door cultivation for a long period, or returns to the Great Void Heaven Temple, it is impossible to assassinate him. Amen. The violet-haired male nodded. He knew too. Dongbo Shuiying had the highest status in the Celestial Water City. Celestial Water Hall Master, who had a higher status than him, was merely an incarnation. Hence, the residence where Dongbo Shuiying stayed was also the core of the array of the entire Celestial Water City. If he did not come out, it was impossible for him to kill his way in. 800 origin world rocks. I want him dead. The violet-haired male said. Even though he had a deep relationship with his little brother, his own cultivation was very important. He was very resistant to selling his weapon, just to gather 5,000 origin world rocks in his heart. After all, for the sake of obtaining the most suitable weapon for himself, he had spent a lot of effort to refine it. Celestial Water City. Within the residence of Dongbo Shuiying, the white-robed Dongbo Shuiying stood there and waved his hand. A large group of cultivators appeared by the side. These were the cultivators he had saved this time. This is the Celestial Water City. Dongbo Shuiying looked at them and said, all of you are safe. Now all of you have regained your freedom. Many thanks, Senior. This group of cultivators respectfully thanked him. Amongst them were the husband and wife Lei Chun and Qing Rua. Send them out. Dongbo Shuiying looked at the green-robed female attendant by the side. Yes, the green-robed female attendant acknowledged. All of you follow me. Don't wander off. The green-robed female attendant roared. Even though she was a female attendant, she was a void god. She was originally one of the deacons in the Celestial Water City. And this time, she was specially arranged by the Society of Elders. The green-robed female attendant brought them out. Lei Chun and Qing Rua even bowed towards Dongbo Shuiying from afar. Dongbo Shuiying smiled at them and transmitted his voice to them. Go on, if you run into any trouble, you can look for me. Dongbo Shuiying naturally remembered Lei Chun's contribution in breaking through the outpost. Thank you, Senior. Lei Chun and Qing Rua were filled with joy. The two of them were reunited and came to Tianshui City. Towards this elder Dongbo, they were filled with gratitude. If it wasn't for Dongbo Shuiying, the two of them would have been controlled and forever loyal to the Saint Master. After they left, Dongbo Shuiying turned around and entered the chamber. In the quiet room, an incense was lit, causing its fragrance to pervade the air. Dongbo Shuiying sat cross-legged on a silver-colored ice silk praying mat. With a wave of his hand, many treasures appeared on the ground. They were the rewards from dealing with the ancient sacred religion. After those sacred emissaries and followers died, Dongbo Shuiying would naturally take away their treasures. This was also another important reward other than the reward from the Great Void Heaven Temple for conquering the base of the ancient sacred religion. Sometimes, the spoils of war would even surpass the rewards from the Great Void Heaven Temple. There were many types of treasures. Dongbo Shuiying identified them one by one and determined their value. The strongest two-peak Unity Realm experts in that outpost, and that black-robed sacred emissary left behind the most treasures. Dongbo Shuiying revealed a joyous look. The cold male died in battle, leaving behind treasures worth approximately 60 origin world rocks. The six-armed girl left behind treasures worth 50 origin world rocks. The black-robed sacred emissary had the most treasures. The teleportation talisman and other items seemed to have restrictions that restricted the usage of the black-robed sacred emissary. Even so, His other treasures added up to close to 200 origin world rocks. As for the large group of sacred emissaries, they only had slightly more than 50 origin world rocks. As for the large number of sacred emissaries, they only had a pitiful amount of treasures. Adding them up, they barely had 20 origin world rocks. In total, they were worth approximately 380 origin world rocks. This did not include the 1 million contribution points from the Great Void Heaven Temple. Destroying an outpost of the ancient sacred religion is indeed profitable. Dongwu Shuiying was rather happy. Although his black gourd was worth more, Guqi had restricted it to him, the inheritor of the ancient sacred religion, and it could not be sold. As an inner hall elder's identity token, it was extremely useful for survival. It was even more precious than the black gourd. However, the identity token of an inner hall elder could not be sold. It was something that outsiders could not obtain or use. That was why Dongwu Shuiying managed to obtain a huge amount of treasures that could be sold. After killing that black-robed sacred emissary, he obtained close to 200 origin world rocks. His status should be somewhat special. Dongwu Shuiying guessed. With a wave of his hand, the countless treasures on the ground were all kept. The incense was also instantly extinguished. Dongwu Shuiying walked out of the meditation room. There were maids and servants within the residence. Master. A green-robed maid walked over. Her voice was crisp and respectful. The 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion has sent an invitation. 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion? Dongwu Shuiying was slightly shocked. The 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion was the largest resource trading organization in the 7-Star Oceanic Sacred World. Behind it were the Great Void Heaven Temple, Primogenita Island, and Jade Light Sacred Territory. One must know that cultivators place great importance on resources. The laws and profound mysteries system was relatively better. The ancient cultivation system, bloodline cultivation system, strongest warrior system, and many others all desired resources and treasures. Thus, the 3 sacred lands created the 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion to specialize in buying and selling resources. Many cultivators were willing to do business at the 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion because it was fair. The 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion could be found in many large cities. The Celestial Water City naturally had a 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion. Invite me. Dongwu Shuiying looked at the invitation. 3,000 years later? In the 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion, ordinary treasures could be bought and sold directly. Some of the more precious ones, which might even be unique in the 5 great sacred worlds and the primal chaos void, could not be sold casually. They would hold a special meeting to inform the experts from all over the world and let them come and bid. The highest bidder would win. The 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion could be found in the large cities of the 7-Star Oceanic Sacred World. In every city, one could participate in the meeting. However, one would only be able to see the shadow of the treasures. As long as one bought it, the treasures would be sent to them. If a large amount of treasures were stored in a large city, it might attract experts to attack and snatch it. Thus, the location of the treasures was unknown. After buying it, the 3 sacred lands would send experts to transfer the treasures. And this time, the meeting organized by the 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion was called the Chengkun meeting, because the most important treasure was a treasure called Chengkun. There was no explanation on it, only that the starting price of this treasure was 1,000 origin world rocks. What treasure? The starting price is so high. Dongwu Shuiying was slightly startled. Only primal chaos giants would be willing to buy a treasure of this level. I wonder what use it has. I've never heard of it before. This meeting had sent out invitations a few thousand years in advance. The earlier it was, the more precious it was. And in history, there were cosmos god weapons that were sold before. Invitations were sent out 100 million years in advance. There were even invitations sent to the ancient sacred world. I'll go and take a look when the time comes. Dongwu Shuiying was quite interested. Chengkun was a treasure he had never heard of before. He could not afford it. But in this meeting, there would be many other treasures appearing together. There would be many rare items. Chapter 847. the treasure convention of the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion, was something that Dongbo Shueying was quite interested in. In the following days, he remained within the residence. He would either comprehend and cultivate within the cultivation room, or go to a specialized training hall to test out his techniques. Unhurriedly, he gradually deepened his understanding of the 13 apocalyptic swords and the plate ripple diagram. He even felt that there was hope for him to comprehend the apocalyptic fourth sword. It was primarily because he cultivated for more than 7 billion years in the Great Void Heaven Temple after becoming a void god. These 7 billion years allowed Dongbo Shueying to deepen his foundation. He had even simplified the apocalyptic third sword into the fish dragon kill. This simplification also represented the realm of Dongbo Shueying. Now that he had broken through the encampment of the ancient sacred religion, his mood was great. He was able to improve and had a clearer understanding of the apocalyptic fourth sword. As long as he spent a little more time, he believed he could comprehend it. Amen. After the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion convention ends, I'll return to the Great Void Heaven Temple and enter closed-door cultivation in the Palace Hall of Time to comprehend the apocalyptic fourth sword. Dongbo Shueying thought. Dongbo Shueying was cultivating leisurely, yet someone else was suffering. This person called Dongbo Shueying is actually staying within the residence? Within a restaurant, a short and plump male was ordering a table of delicacies. He was drinking and eating at the same time frowning. He glanced through the window of the restaurant to the distance. Even though it was more than 5,000 kilometers away, he could still see that residence clearly. That was the residence of Dongbo Shueying. The short and plump male wore ordinary clothes. There were black patterns on his face, and his pair of dark golden eyes contained a strand of impatience. His aura was reserved. From the surface, he seemed like an ordinary void god. But in reality, he was a primal chaos giant, forefather Blackloth. He was famous when the ancient sacred world was still intact. The majority of final realm existences did not live as long as he did. In terms of strength, he was ranked in the front amongst primal chaos giants. He was stronger by an entire level than Ancestor Devil and Heaven Weeping Sect Master. Furthermore, his personality was slightly more wicked. He did not rely on any cosmos gods. Instead, he lived alone and was famous for his assassination. Of course, only one of his incarnations had come to the Sky-Water City, because if he killed Dongbo Shueying, who was an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple, and in the Sky-Water City, one of the 12 primal chaos cities of the Great Void Heaven Temple, the Great Void Heaven Temple would definitely be enraged, and he would not be able to escape. Naturally, he would not come with his true body. The incarnation could conceal and change its appearance and aura. Once the assassination was successful, the incarnation would immediately dissipate. As long as he didn't leave any traces, the Great Void Heaven Temple wouldn't be able to find him. According to the intel, when this Dongbo Shueying first came to Tianshui City, he liked to go to restaurants and restaurants. Why haven't you come out after destroying a base of the ancient sacred cult? The short and fat man, forefather Blackloth, was speechless. He had rushed here as fast as he could, hoping that Dongbo Shueying would assassinate him while he was strolling outside. If the assassination was successful, he would be able to leave leisurely. But now that Dongbo Shueying refused to come out, there was nothing he could do. In the blink of an eye, 3,000 years had passed. Within the mansion's quiet room, the fragrance of incense permeated the air. Dongbo Shueying was sitting cross-legged on a praying mat. His skin was covered with a layer of black energy. This energy was descending from the distant primal chaos void. This was the extremely condensed primal chaos void energy, guided by the walker's hidden secret. Due to the compression of the technique, it had turned black. It was extremely cold and destructive. Pooh. Dongbo Shueying opened his mouth and spat out a rainbow-colored light. The rainbow-colored light gradually dissipated in the quiet room. This rainbow-colored light was the portion of the primal chaos void energy that could not be absorbed. I didn't expect that I would be able to improve my walker's hidden secret in these 3,000 years. Dongbo Shueying revealed a look of joy. Although his other aspects were improving slowly, there wasn't any obvious improvement. However, His walker's hidden secret had reached the 29th level. And there's still half a month before the grand meeting. Dongbo Shuiying was in a good mood. After breaking through, he continued to comprehend the walker's hidden secret. He wanted to reach the 31st level as soon as possible. When that day came, he would be considered to have reached the unity realm of the Void Walker system. Be it his body, his termination energy, or his control over the void, they would all experience a qualitative change. Half a moon flashed by. Dongbo Shuiying stood up. Rumble. The door of the quiet room opened. I hope this grand meeting will give me a pleasant surprise. Dongbo Shuiying was filled with anticipation. This was his first time participating in the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion's grand meeting. South, walking to the courtyard of the mansion, Dongbo Shuiying vanished into thin air. He immediately executed the void evasion and rushed towards the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. After all, the mansion was 300,000 miles away from the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. He wasn't in the mood to fly slowly. And Forefather Blackloath, who had bought a small courtyard, was constantly releasing his secret technique. He was carefully scouting the surroundings of Dongbo Shuiying's mansion. Because Dongbo Shuiying's mansion was an important core of the array of the entire celestial water city, he did not dare to use his secret technique to scout inside the mansion. He only dared to use it outside the mansion. Forefather Blackloath had long prepared to wait for 3,000 years. Being a primal chaos realm giant, 100 million years was nothing to him. Suddenly, Forefather Blackloath opened his eyes. His dark golden eyes were filled with shock. Because the range of his secret technique, he felt a void penetration. With a schwa, he had traversed 150,000 miles and arrived at the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. It was too fast. Currently, even if Dongbo Shuiying teleported, he could only teleport more than 150,000 miles under the law suppression of the sacred world. A mere 300,000 miles was merely an instant to him. Just when Forefather Blackloath discovered Dongbo Shuiying had already arrived at the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. 7-star Oceanic Pavilion? Forefather Blackloath was furious. Can't you fly slowly? Can't you come out for a stroll and have a walk? After being cooped up for 3,000 years, why don't you come out and relax? Forefather Blackloath was slightly frustrated. But he understood that it was normal for powerful cultivators to enter closed-door cultivation for 10 billion years. Why would they feel like relaxing after just 3,000 years? Forefather Blackloath only felt sullen. He had just discovered Dongbo Shuiying when Dongbo Shuiying entered the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. Damn it! Forefather Blackloath muttered. The 7-star Oceanic Pavilion is jointly created by the 3 great holy grounds of the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. It specializes in selling treasures. The security of this place is so tight that it far exceeds that of Dongbo Shuiying's mansion. The moment I infiltrate it, I will definitely be discovered. It is impossible for me to assassinate him within the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. Wait for him to come out. Forefather Blackloath said to himself. This time, I have to be prepared. Even if he directly pierces through the void from the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion, I will immediately intercept him. He decided to maintain the highest level of vigilance. The moment he discovered Dongbo Shuiying coming out, he would immediately intercept him. Because of Dongbo Shuiying's void-piercing speed, it only took an instant to travel from the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion to the mansion. The time was too short, and he could not afford to be distracted. This highest level of vigilance was also very tiring. However, Forefather Blackloath was still willing to do it for a short 1 or 2 days. After all, the moment he succeeded, he would be rewarded with 560 Origin World Rocks. South. At the entrance of the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion, a white-robed youth appeared out of nowhere. It was Dongbo Shuiying, Elder Dongbo. In just a breath's time, the manager of the Heavenly Water City's 7-star Oceanic Pavilion personally came to welcome him with a warm expression. Chapter 848. The manager was wearing a golden robe. He chuckled and said, I am called Yuqi. I am the pavilion master of this 7-star oceanic pavilion in the celestial water city. Even though I am the pavilion master, I am still a disciple of the great void heaven temple. Oh, Dongbua Shuang nodded slightly. It was not strange since the 7-star oceanic pavilion was backed by the great void heaven temple, Primogenita Island, and Jade Light Sacred Territory. The important members would most likely be sent by the 3 holy grounds. Every big city would have a 7-star oceanic pavilion with a pavilion master. Elder Dongbua, follow me. Pavilion Master Yuqi was very passionate. As he led the way, he said, only 15 people from our Celestial Water City branch will be participating in this convention. By then, we will be competing with the other pavilions for treasures. The competition will be much more intense. I heard that quite a few primal chaos experts have even rushed over from other places like the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World. Dongbua Shuang was slightly curious. It was slightly interesting for different pavilions to compete for treasures at the same time. Please. Pavilion Master Yuqi led Dongbua Shuang into a house. There was already a female attendant waiting in the house. She was even carrying a flask of wine. There was a huge window in the house. Through the window, one could see the high platform in the distance. This time, the treasure gathering is called the Chengkun Gathering, because the most precious treasure is a mystical item called Chengkun. Actually, I have never heard of it before. It's said that many primal chaos experts from other sacred worlds have rushed over for it. Pavilion Master Yuqi said. Oh right, before this, I still need to see what treasures Elder Dongbua has and determine the limit of what Elder Dongbua can bid. Amen. Dongbua Shuang waved his hand. Hua. A large number of treasures filled a small half of the house. Dongbua Shuang was planning to sell these items. So many? Pavilion Master Yuqi was slightly startled. He immediately began to analyze them carefully. As a pavilion master, identifying treasures was the most basic. His speed was even faster than Dongbua Shuang. These treasures can be exchanged for 385 Origin World rocks. Pavilion Master Yuqi smiled and said, with so many Origin World rocks, it should be enough to buy some rare treasures. Time flew by. Pavilion Master Yuqi chatted with Dongbua Shuang. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours passed. Finally, a purple-robed woman appeared on the stage outside the window. The purple-robed woman had an extraordinary bearing. She smiled as she looked around and said, I, Mingyu, am one of the 9 elders of the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. Today, I will be the host of this Chengkun Grand Assembly. Dongbua Shuang was shocked. Bright You Planet Lord? A primal chaos existence from the Jade Light Sacred Territory. Pavilion Master Yuqi immediately said, the Bright You Star Lord is just a projection. She must be in a big city in the Jade Light Holy Land, in the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. Let's start right away. The violet-robed woman was clearly very familiar with this. She extended her hand, causing a red flower to appear in her palm. Every single petal was bright and glistening. There were even water droplets condensing on the surface. She waved her hand, causing this red flower to transform into a red armored woman. This is a Unity Realm puppet life form that has the strength to get through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda. The violet-robed woman chuckled. The starting price is 100 Origin World rocks, 110 Origin World rocks, 111 Origin World rocks. One could see voices coming from different directions outside the window. Pavilion Master Yuqi immediately explained from the side. These voices are all from the various pavilions participating in the bidding. Elder Dongbua, when you bid, your voice will resound in the various pavilions. Dongbua Shuang watched from the side. He was not interested in this Unity Realm puppet life form. He did not have many treasures, and he had to use them when he needed them. The bidding in this grand assembly was also very cautious. The later it was, the higher the price would be by Origin World rocks. Sometimes, they would even hesitate for a long time, and only bid when the violet-robed woman was about to announce the end of the auction. 36 Origin World rocks. Dongbua Shuang stood by the window and said. His voice resounded around the high platform. The violet-robed woman on the high platform was currently holding onto a jade vase. She was smiling as she looked around. 37 Origin World rocks. 38 Origin World Rocks. The price kept rising. Very soon Dongbo Shuang shook his head. Within the jade vase was a refined pellet that had the effect of assisting in cultivation. Dongbo Shuang treated such treasures with great importance. He could buy it for his wife and son, or he could use it himself. But he had to see if the price was suitable. If the price was too high, it would not be worth it. Because he was still young, and there was still a long time before this epic in his hometown cosmos. As he became stronger, he would be able to obtain better cultivation treasures. But now he was not in a rush. The lowest price among these treasures exceeded 30 Origin World Rocks, and some even exceeded several hundred Origin World Rocks. But the final treasure Chinkun had yet to appear. Hence, the starting price was 1,000 Origin World Rocks. According to these bidding patterns, Dongbo Shuang estimated that the final price would be doubled if he succeeded. Finally, it was the 22nd treasure's turn. The violet-robed woman on the high platform extended her right hand, causing a black book to appear on her palm. This book seemed to be forged from pieces of black metal, and was even faintly emitting a dark aura. "This is yet another great treasure," the violet-robed woman said. The moment Dongbo Shuang heard it, he knew that these great treasures were usually worth several hundred Origin World Rocks. In the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, there was once an outstanding ancient cultivator called Dark World Master. The violet-robed woman said, "I believe many cultivators here should know of him." Dongbo Shuang was startled. Never heard of him before. He might be at the Unity Realm, but he had gotten through the 6th level of Star Pagoda. The violet-robed woman said, "He is strong enough to fight against primal chaos experts." Dongbo Shuang was startled. Got through the 6th level of Star Pagoda? In this current era, none of the inner hall elders of the Great Void Heaven Temple could get through the 6th level. The absolute art he created is called Dark World. The violet-robed girl looked at the black book in her hands. She sighed. It's a pity that he died at the Unity Realm. Otherwise, with his potential, the moment he reached the Primal Chaos Realm, he would be much stronger than me. He might even be able to get through the 8th level of Star Pagoda. The 9th floor isn't completely hopeless. As an ancient cultivator, he was most proficient in controlling illusory worlds. Illusory worlds are originally good at trapping and confusing enemies, but their offensive capabilities are extremely weak. But he blazed a new path. He created a world purely to nurture killer moves. A world is to give birth to killer moves. Before the enemy even got close to him, the world's power gathered into a killer move. When the killer move descends, its power is extremely terrifying. The purple-clothed woman was still describing. After all, this was an ultimate art. If they wanted cultivators to buy it, they had to understand what kind of ultimate art it was, and what aspects it was powerful in. Only after they understood it in detail would they be able to judge whether it was suitable for them or not. Dongbo Shuang, on the other hand, felt his mind rumbling. It was as if a bolt of lightning had torn through the darkness and illuminated the darkness. Constructing a world purely to nurture a killer move. An entire world, just for a killer move? Gathering all the world's energy into a killer move. The mind of Dongbo Shuang began flashing with inspiration. Sometimes what he lacked was an idea. The direction of creating the dark world, absolute art, made Dongbo Shuang discover with shock that he specialized in the Tao of Mirage. He did not even have a cosmos-ranked absolute art in the Tao of Mirage, yet he was still the first to step into the Void God realm. But the Tao of Mirage was indeed not suited for combat. This made Dongbo Shuang unable to make any headway. But now he saw the direction. Killing move. Constructing a world for the sake of a killing move. Dongbo Shuang even had many ideas in his mind, but he understood that it was extremely difficult to create an absolute art based on the ideas, experiment, ponder, and modify them. It was even harder to create a horrifying absolute art. His Wind Ripple Path and Fish Dragon Kill had cosmos-ranked absolute arts as the foundation. Otherwise, it would take too much time for him to create another absolute art. I must get this absolute art. Dongbo Shuang immediately made his decision. There is only one original copy of this dark world, and it is the only copy. The starting price is 150 Origin World Rocks. The purple-clothed woman said. The surroundings became quiet. Nobody called out a price. 151 Origin World rocks. Dongbo Shuang stood by the window. He endured for a while before shouting out. His voice reverberated around the high platform, and within every single pavilion in the entire 7-star oceanic sacred world. Chapter 849. Within the house, Pavilion Master Yu Qi stood by the side and chuckled. Elder Dongbo wishes to have the sole copy of this absolute art? For such an absolute art, cultivators who desperately want it will bid a high price. But those who do not wish to learn this absolute art are not willing to bid. From the looks of it, there shouldn't be many who bid this time. I believe the price won't be too high. Dongbo Shuang nodded. He was extremely talented in the Mirage. He had read through many books in the myriad elephant palace of the Great Void Heaven Temple. But there weren't many who had reached a high level in cultivation. There were only 2 final realm existences, including the fallen primogeniture of the laws and profound mysteries lineage, ancestor Tsang. There weren't many at the primal chaos realm either. Hence, there were very few books of a high level. Mirage-related books were even rarer, and they were lacking in offensive techniques. Only Dark World had allowed Dongbo Shuang to see the light of hope. Without a cosmos-ranked absolute art, the Tao of Mirage was much faster than the Tao of Ripple and Tao of Slaughter. If there was a suitable absolute art for him to research, he would be able to improve even faster. Mirage. This was a true meaning he comprehended when he was a transcendent, and it was also the first Tao he opened. If he encountered a suitable absolute art, he would naturally not miss it. I hope there won't be any competitors. Dongbo Shuang hoped in his heart. If he could spend 1 less Origin World rock, it would be 1 less. 152 Origin World rocks. A slightly cold voice resounded from the other side of the high platform. Dongbo Shuang frowned. There was really a competitor. 153 Origin World rocks. Dongbo Shuang announced. 200 Origin World rocks. That cold and stern voice said directly. Dongbo Shuang felt a knot in his heart. Not good. According to his previous experience of watching the bids, the increase in bids was usually very small, unless one truly wanted it and wanted to suppress his opponent. Only then would he raise the bid by a huge margin. 201 Origin World rocks. Dongbo Shuang continued. 250 Origin World rocks. It was still that cold voice. Brother Quan Miao, you are determined to get it. 251. An aged voice rang out. Dongbo Shuang was shocked. Quan Miao. This was a primal chaos giant who lived in seclusion within the primal chaos void. He was called Forefather Quan Miao, and he specialized in the illusory realm. He is just a primal chaos giant, yet he wants the original copy of this absolute art so badly? This is an absolute art created by a Unity realm expert. To old ancestor Quan Miao, its level is slightly too low. Dongbo Shuang frowned. To Forefather Quan Miao, this absolute art would definitely not be able to increase his strength. After all, cultivating it to grand perfection would only allow him to get through the 6th level of Star Pagoda. It would at most give Forefather Quan Miao some inspiration, or maybe he would create a new technique himself. However, it was very difficult to activate one's body and transmit a new move. 300 Origin World rocks. The cold voice continued. 301 Origin World rocks. Dongbo Shuang said calmly. I wonder which friend wants to compete with me? The cold voice said. 350 Origin World rocks. Dongbo Shuang felt slightly anxious. He was not afraid of Forefather Quan Miao, since he was a member of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Why would he be afraid of an idle primal chaos existence? But he had too few treasures. Pavilion Master Yu Qi had already set a price for these treasures that could be sold, and he could buy them for 385 Origin World rocks. And now, that Forefather Quan Miao had already reported the price of 350 Origin World rocks. What would he do if it exceeded his limit? Pavilion Master Yu Qi, I have a matter to trouble you. Dongbo Shuang said to Pavilion Master Yu Qi by the side. Can you contact that Forefather Quan Miao? I am willing to pay 150 Origin World rocks to learn this dark world once. After learning it, The original copy will belong to him, and I will not compete with him. You can't. Pavilion Master Yu Qi shook his head. The rules of the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion is that the highest bidder wins. We will definitely not allow you to negotiate. Even if you were to openly negotiate with Forefather Quan Miao in front of the window, the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion will isolate your voice. Dongbo Shuang frowned. That was true. The 7-star Oceanic Pavilion was all for the sake of selling for the highest price. After Forefather Quan Miao reported the price of 350 Origin World Rocks, the other old voice no longer bid. He was purely teasing Forefather Quan Miao, and was not willing to end up in his own hands. 351 Origin World Rocks. Dongbo Shuang continued. Forefather Quan Miao went silent for a moment. The violet-robed girl had already spoken. 351 Origin World Rocks. Fellow gentlemen, there are no more Origin World Rocks. This absolute art originally belonged to 400 Origin World Rocks. Forefather Quan Miao spoke again. Dongbo Ying's expression changed. 400 Origin World Rocks. What should he do? Elder Dongbo, you are unable to bid anymore. By the side, Pavilion Master Yu Qi reminded. Your limit is 385 Origin World Rocks, unless you take out more treasures. Dongbo Shuang frowned. Even though he still had other treasures, most of them could not be sold. Things that could be sold were like his weapons. There was also the supplementary spiritual fruit. In his heart, this supplementary spiritual fruit was not something that he could not sell. After all, the stronger he was, the easier it would be for him to obtain cultivation treasures that were better than the supplementary spiritual fruit. Moreover, with the sole copy of the absolute art in his hands, he could sell it off in the future. Can I temporarily owe some Origin World Rocks? Dongbo Shuang asked. He was an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple. With such an identity, how could he owe some Origin World Rocks? Pavilion Master Yu Qi could tell that this elder Dongbo really wanted it. However, he still shook his head. The rules cannot be violated. Unless Elder Dongbo has treasures as collateral, only then are we willing to lend the Origin World Rocks to Elder Dongbo. The items used as collateral will be temporarily detained. Dongbo Shuang hurriedly said. I have 2 million merit points. Can I use them as collateral? The Great Void Heaven Temple's merit points can naturally be used as collateral. Pavilion Master Yu Qi said. After all, merit points could be used to exchange for various treasures in the Great Void Heaven Temple. However, with 2 million merit points as collateral, I can only borrow 160 Origin World Rocks at most. All right. Dongbo Shuang nodded. I've already checked. Elder Dongbo indeed has 2 million merit points. You can continue bidding now. Pavilion Master Yu Qi said. 401 Origin World Rocks. Dongbo Shuang continued to bid calmly. This time, it was Forefather Quan Miao's turn to be angry. Forefather Quan Miao sat there with a gloomy expression. He lifted the wine cup on the table in front of him, and took a sip. Who is fighting with me? Every time I bid, he would have one more than me. I have been searching for this dark world, as it might be helpful to my cultivation. But now a competitor has appeared. When the price reached this stage, he began to hesitate. After all, Primal Chaos Realm Giants did not have many Origin World Rocks. Furthermore, this was an absolute art created by a Unity Realm expert. To a Primal Chaos Realm expert, its value was ultimately limited. It could only open up a new direction for him, or it might not be of any help in the end. 500 Origin World Rocks. Forefather Quan Miao directly said coldly. His cold voice transmitted out through the window. Similarly, it resounded in the distant celestial water cities, 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. It is about time. Forefather Quan Miao had made his decision in his heart. This is the highest price I can offer for the dark world. Any higher, and it will belong to him. With such a high price, the other party should feel heartache. He was waiting for the price. 501 Origin World Rocks. That voice was still calm. It seemed that no matter how much Forefather Quan Miao bid, that voice would always increase by 1. Forefather Quan Miao snorted angrily. His right hand held onto the wine cup before instantly crushing it into powder. Very soon, as the violet-robed girl continued to remind him, there were no new bids. Finally, the violet-robed girl announced, 501 Origin World rocks for the Dark World. Now let's begin the next treasure. Forefather Quan Miao looked at the pavilion master, who was specially accompanying him. He instructed, the contest for the original copy of the Dark World has ended. Your 7-star Oceanic Pavilion will help me contact that person who obtained the Dark World. Tell him that I am willing to fork out 150 Origin World rocks to learn this Dark World once. The original copy will still belong to him. Chapter 850. Over at the Celestial Water City, Dongbua Xueying was truly nervous. This was the absolute art that he felt was most suitable for his Tao of Mirage system. Being able to get through the 6th level of Star Pagoda at the Unity Realm meant that this absolute art was extremely formidable. It was close to a Cosmos-ranked absolute art at the same level. For instance, none of the Inner Hall Elders of the Great Void Heaven Temple could get through the 6th level, even though they had Cosmos-ranked absolute arts. Naturally, this was because of their comprehension abilities. Like the less than 13 apocalyptic swords, theoretically speaking, it was possible to comprehend the 6th sword at the Unity Realm. The moment one comprehended the 6th sword, he would be confident of getting through the 6th level of Star Pagoda. It's a pity that the current batch of Inner Hall Elders could not do it. I can't go any higher. I can't go any higher. Xueying was really nervous because his previous treasures were only worth 385 Origin World rocks, and his contribution points were only worth 160 Origin World rocks. Even though he still had some scattered items, he was close to his limit. When the violet-robed girl finally announced, Dongbua Xueying revealed a look of joy. Congratulations, Elder Dongbua. Pavilion Master Yuqi said. Amen. Dongbua Xueying nodded. It's a pity that the price is slightly high. Elder Dongbua, after you learn it, you can sell the original copy of Dark World. Pavilion Master Yuqi said. You can even ask the Great Void Heaven Temple what price they are willing to pay for it. But I reckon it won't be much higher than the starting price. Dongbua Xueying nodded. That's right. The starting price was 150 Origin World rocks. He and that forefather Quan Miao fought for it all the way to 501 Origin World rocks. This price was really high. If not for destroying the base of the ancient sacred religion, he would not be qualified to bid such a high price. Elder Dongbua, I have a piece of good news. Pavilion Master Yuqi suddenly revealed a look of joy. He said, didn't you find it expensive? Forefather Quan Miao has just contacted you through my 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. He is willing to pay 150 Origin World rocks just to learn it once. The original copy will still belong to you. Old Ancestor Quan Miao? Dongbua Xueying had already guessed that the other party would contact him, just like how he had wanted to contact him previously. However, communication was prohibited during the treasure auction. They could only contact each other after the auction had ended. Tell him 300 Origin World rocks. Dongbua Xueying said. 300 for a single lesson? Pavilion Master Yuqi was speechless. Just pass the message to them, Dongbua Xueying said. All right. Pavilion Master Yuqi nodded. Dongbua Xueying watched silently as Mingyu's Star Lord continued to sell the other treasures on the high platform. The price of 300 Origin World stones he proposed was based on a reason. Since the other party had reached the price of 500 crystals during the auction, and according to his estimations, the other party was only trying to move him. In that case, learning it once would be enough, and it wouldn't be that important to him in the first place. Originally it had value, but its value was limited. It was estimated to be around 200 to 300 Origin World stones. 300 Origin World stones for each learning session. This should be the limit of what the other party could afford. It might be slightly higher, but it's not worth it to ask for a sky-high price. He had to cherish every single Origin World stone he had. Forefather Quan Miao has returned. Pavilion Master Yuqi looked at Dongbua Xueying. He said it's too high. He said the highest he can offer is 220 Origin World stones. Tell him that I want to buy it at a higher price. The lowest I can offer is 280 Origin World Stones. Dongbo Shuang said. Both parties might be saying that the lowest was the highest, yet they were still bargaining. One party was a primal chaos realm giant, and the other party was an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple. They were competing for the Origin World Stones. Because everyone was clear. Everything was for the sake of cultivation, and it was fine for both parties to agree on a price. To Dongbo Shuang, there weren't many who were willing to pay a high price for the Dark World. It seemed that only he and forefather Quan Miao were competing in this auction. Secondly, the starting price was even lower. Hence, even though it was just learning it once, it was rare to meet someone who was willing to pay a high price. Since he met someone, the price would naturally not be low. Both parties competed until the end. 235 Origin World Stones. Forefather Quan Miao learned it once. The entire convention lasted for more than half a day. The final treasure, Chung Kun, was a unique leather skirt that seemed to belong to some life form. The violet-robed girl introduced it vaguely, but the bids were crazy. The final price reached a horrifying 3,982 Origin World Stones. This price made Dongbo Shuang speechless. It seems to be the outer skin of some life form, Dongbo Shuang muttered. For it to be sold at such a high price, could it be the outer skin of a cosmos god? Even though he was shocked, he was still in a good mood, as he followed Pavilion Master, Yu Qi, to the hidden underground palace hall of this branch of the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. At the center of the underground palace hall, there was an array about 100 meters in diameter. Pavilion Master Yu Qi stood side by side with Dongbo Shuang. He pointed to the array. This array is used to mark the precise location. Very soon, an expert from the other side will directly teleport the original copy of Dark World over. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Ultra-long distance teleportation. Teleporting living beings was the hardest, but teleporting items was much easier. Just like in the past when he and Ancestor Devil were teleported from the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World to the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World by Ancestor Desert. Ancestor Desert only asked if Ancestor Devil brought any other subordinates along, and did not ask what items were brought along. Precisely because items were dead, and teleportation was easy. According to the original agreement between you and Forefather Quan Miao, you have already let Forefather Quan Miao learn the Dark World. He has also paid 235 Origin World Stones. You still have to pay 266 Origin World Stones. Pavilion Master Yu Qi said. Sell all these treasures. Dongbo Shuang said before passing a storage wristband to Pavilion Master Yu Qi. Pavilion Master Yu Qi checked it. All right. In a while, I will give you 119 Origin World Stones, Elder Dongbo. Wang. A distorted spatial passage appeared in front of him. A black book flew out from the passage. It gradually landed within the array, and the passage dissipated. Dongbo Shuang's eyes brightened. He immediately went forward and took this book. This black metal-forged book had 3 distorted words on its surface. It was the meaning of Dark World, yet it naturally contained an illusory realm. The entire book was even covered in black fog, and those with weaker souls would likely sink into this book. He slowly flipped open the book. Wang. The words on the book immediately turned into words that flew towards Dongbo Shuang. They continuously tunneled into the mind of Dongbo Shuang. Dark World. This was an incomplete absolute art. That outstanding Unity Realm expert, Dark World Master, had clearly recorded in the beginning of this book that he wanted to create 3 great killing moves for the Dark World. The first move could allow him to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda. The second move could allow him to get through the 6th level, and the third move could allow him to get through the 7th level. Given the arrogance of Dark World Master, he wanted to reach the historical limit of the Unity Realm, to get through the 7th level at the Unity Realm. And the first 2 moves were completed in the book, yet the third move was not recorded. That year, he had fallen before he could create a stronger move. The first style of the Dark World, Dark Bubble, would create a world that could envelop the enemy before rapidly shrinking. This huge world would shrink to the limit and completely envelop the enemy, just like a bubble trapping the enemy. But this bubble contained the energy of an entire world. It was a world that was specially constructed for the purpose of explosion. With a thought, the world would explode. The entire world would be destroyed, and all living beings within the world would be exterminated. Its power was terrifying. The second style of the Dark World, Sky Punishment Edge, used this world as its foundation to form this blade. This was the Sky Punishment Edge. It would descend from the illusory realm, and was extremely sudden. Most enemies would not be able to get close to it, and would be killed in a single blade. Dark World Master just stood at his original position, causing many Sky Punishment Edges to descend from the void. It attacked in all directions. With this move, he became famous across the 5 great sacred worlds, allowing him to fight against primal chaos realm giants at the Unity realm. It's a pity that he died before he could create the third style. Chapter 851. Shuang held onto the black book in his hand. He was completely immersed in this unfathomable illusory realm absolute art created by Dark World Master. Constructing an enormous world, just for the sake of a single killing technique, was a unique way of thinking. Furthermore, this Dark World Master was absolutely a genius who could transcend the heavens. In the 5 great sacred worlds and the primal chaos void, there were many outstanding geniuses amongst the countless life forms. There were even Unity Realm experts who could get through the 7th level Star Pagoda. There were even those like Sword Master, who directly stepped into the final realm after entering closed-door cultivation in the Great Void Heaven Temple. Dongbua Shuang was filled with admiration towards these geniuses. Dark World. Dongbua Shuang received the detailed information of this absolute art in his mind. He could not help but be captivated by it. In terms of creating a world or even altering it, the easiest way was undoubtedly the illusory realm. Because it was an illusory realm, it was easy to change it. Dongbua Shuang's Tao of Mirage was the same. It was hard to change the real world, but he could change the mirage into anything he wanted. First, he would construct the mirage world. After that, he would turn the mirage into reality. After all, the mirage encompassed the real world. To Dongbua Shuang, it was an easy task. He could already turn part of the mirage into reality when he was at the opening realm, much less now. First, he would construct a perfect killing technique world in the mirage before turning it into reality. The descent of the killing technique. Dark Bubble. Many ideas flashed in the mind of Dongbua Shuang. 3 Daos. He had the highest talent in the Tao of Mirage. At this moment, comprehending this absolute art from the dark world gave him all sorts of enlightenment. Pavilion Master Yuqi. Dongbua Shuang abruptly opened his eyes and looked at Pavilion Master Yuqi. Elder Dongbua. Pavilion Master Yuqi added. He saw how this Elder Dongbo was engrossed in the absolute art inheritance, which made him feel puzzled. After all, this was an absolute art written by a genius expert at the Unity realm, and the amount of information it contained would not be huge. It should be very fast for him to accept the inheritance. Why was Elder Dongbua immersed in it for so long? But he didn't dare to disturb him. Quickly bring me to the best cultivation room in your 7-star oceanic pavilion. Dongbua Shuang instructed. Remember, it's the best. All right. Pavilion Master Yuqi's eyes lit up. Please follow me. Swoosh. Although the quiet room in his mansion was not bad, it was still far from the best quiet room in the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion, which specialized in external transactions. An origin-grade cultivation room. Pavilion Master Yuqi introduced as he walked. This is the best cultivation room in our 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. The room itself is built with Chiya incense wood, and the Chiya incense wood will continuously release a natural fragrance, which is extremely beneficial to cultivation. A complete Chiya incense wood will release a fragrance after 300 million years, and it will no longer have a fragrance. That's why time normally stops in this source-grade training room. Pavilion Master Yuqi said, when cultivators enter, time will return to normal. The price of cultivating inside is 100 million years requires 1,000 origin world rocks, which is equivalent to 1 origin world rock every 100,000 years. I know. Dongbua Shuang nodded. He had never thought of cultivating here for a long time. If he wanted to cultivate for a long time, he would definitely have to return to the Palace of Time. He could not waste his time wantonly. What he wanted was a short period of cultivation. Because this was the first time he saw the dark world, large amounts of inspiration appeared. This was the best time for him to enter closed-door cultivation. Furthermore, he had to choose the best cultivation room to convert these inspiration into insights and strength. A cultivation room that costs one origin world rock every 100,000 years was extravagant, but Dongbo Shuang was willing to do so. Can we practice in the cultivation room? Dongbo Shuang asked. As long as the attack on the wooden walls of the cultivation room does not surpass the primal chaos realm, it will be fine, Pavilion Master Yuqi said. The array of this cultivation room is set up by someone at the level of Hall Master. Amen. Within the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion, by the side of a lake, there was a wooden cultivation room. It's just that the flow of time here was still. Please, Pavilion Master Yuqi said. Dongbo Shuang walked forward and pushed open the wooden door. Instantly, the flow of time in the cultivation room returned to normal. After Dongbo Shuang entered, the wooden door automatically closed. An extremely faint fragrance permeated the cultivation room. However, this fragrance caused Dongbo Shuang's mind to feel extremely comfortable. He immediately sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate the dark world without wasting any time. Hua! An illusory world even appeared in the air of the cultivation room. This world was completely dark, and countless mysterious runes could be faintly seen circulating within it. The entire world was constantly changing. Days passed one after another. In a restaurant not far away from the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion, the short and fat man, Forefather Black Loath, who had been waiting here for a long time, suddenly had a change in expression. Why isn't he coming out? According to what I know, the treasure meet this time has already ended. It has already been half a month. Forefather Black Loath was truly anxious. Because Dongbo Shuang's void penetration was extremely fast, he only needed a blink of an eye to travel from the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion to his residence. Hence, he had to maintain the highest level of vigilance so that he could intercept Dongbo Shuang the moment he entered the void. But in the blink of an eye, half a month had passed since he maintained the highest level of vigilance. Forefather Black Loath did not dare to relax at all during this half a month. He was after all a primal chaos realm giant that was born during the earliest period of the ancient sacred world. Naturally, he had a stomach full of anger after guarding this identity for so long. Time to return. Forefather Black Loath no longer stayed in the restaurant. He returned to the small courtyard that he bought. He no longer had the mood to maintain the highest level of vigilance. He merely separated a strand of consciousness to envelop the outer perimeter of the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion and Dongbo Shuang's residence. I don't believe that he won't come out for a stroll forever. Forefather Black Loath had already decided to wait. He would act only when Dongbo Shuang was strolling outside. Time. He could afford to wait. Dongbo Shuang's passion in the Tao of Mirage had indeed been ignited by the dark world. If one said that cultivating the Tao of Slaughter and the Tao of Ripple was taxing, then cultivating the Tao of Mirage gave him a feeling of contentment. Within the Chia incense wood cultivation room, Dongbo Shuang was seated cross-legged. A translucent dark world appeared around him. It was already emitting a horrifying aura. Many inscriptions were revolving within this dark world. Just a little more. Dongbo Shuang opened his eyes. He frowned. He had cultivated for 70,000 years within the cultivation room. He had even comprehended a portion of the first style of dark world, the dark bubble. But as he comprehended more, he realized where the problem lay. That was for the dark bubble to be formed. The dark world that was formed had to be a perfect entity. To achieve an absolutely perfect entity, then the Mirage law system would no longer be suitable to use the Tao of Mirage to govern the other laws. He had to improve further. He had to evolve the Mirage law system into the Mirage origin. Only when his entire Tao of Mirage had reached the Mirage origin level would his control over the Mirage reach perfection. Only then would he be able to execute the dark bubble. Thus, reaching the unity realm in the Tao of Mirage was a prerequisite for him to execute the first style of Dark World. And during these 70,000 years of cultivating the Dark World, the various comprehensions he gained had brought him closer and closer to the Mirage origin. He also wanted to integrate the entire system into one. He wanted to transform it into the Mirage origin. But he always felt that he was lacking something. This point made Dongbua Shueying rather vexed. No matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't take that step. The final bottleneck. Dongbua Shueying gritted his teeth. I'll risk it. Dongbua Shueying flipped his hand, and a crystal box appeared. The crystal box was translucent, and one could see a dark purple fruit within. It was the most precious item that could assist in cultivation, the supplementary spiritual fruit. Originally, he thought that the Void Walker system would be the first to reach the Unity realm. However, due to a fortuitous encounter with the Dark World Absolute Art, and the first style of the Dark World, the Dark Bubble, required the Mirage Origin realm to reach the Unity realm. Thus, he naturally got closer and closer to the Unity realm, and now, he had reached the final bottleneck. Within it were the elements of the Dark World. Cultivating an absolute art was indeed helpful in raising one's strength. He also had his own talent in the Tao of Mirage. It was also because of the Chiya incense wood cultivation room. This was the best cultivation room he had ever cultivated in. Now that he had reached the bottleneck, he might be stuck for a long time if he wanted to break through. The supplementary spiritual fruit, I'll just use it. Dongbua Shueying looked at the fruit in the crystal box. The supplementary spiritual fruit was very precious. Usually it would be publicly bestowed to newly advanced golden-robed disciples. However, if the upper echelons of the Great Void Heaven Temple really wanted it, they still had the qualifications to obtain it. For example, the two Palace Masters, the Hall Masters and the Inner Hall Elders. After becoming an Inner Hall Elder, Dongbua Shueying could casually flip through the universe-level absolute arts. Many rare items could be exchanged with contribution points. The range of treasures that a golden-robed disciple could exchange for was limited. The Inner Hall Elders could exchange for the supplementary spiritual fruit. They had a lifetime limit of 3, and each one cost 600,000 contribution points. In fact, they could even exchange for items that were better than the supplementary spiritual fruit. However, the price was much higher as well. It was precisely because of this that Dongbua Shueying decided to use the supplementary spiritual fruit. Moreover, the stronger he was, the more treasures he had. Naturally, it would be easier for him to obtain items that were better than the supplementary spiritual fruit. Let's have a taste first and feel the effects. Just this fruit alone is worth about 50 Origin World rocks. Dongbua Shueying opened the crystal box and took out the dark purple fruit. He took a bite and his eyes lit up. Kacha kacha, he finished the entire fruit in a few bites. Today was the first day. Star. Chapter 852. In the Chiya incense wood cultivation room, Dongbua Shueying, who was sitting with his legs crossed, took the first bite of the supplementary spiritual fruit. He felt a wave of coldness spreading rapidly from his throat to his entire body, even to his soul. It caused his soul to be completely cold. Even some of the doubts he had regarding the Tao of Mirage immediately surfaced in his mind, and he had many ideas on how to break through the bottleneck. This immediately made him overjoyed. He quickly ate the supplementary spiritual fruit and focused on comprehending the Tao of Mirage. His ice-cold soul was thinking extremely fast at this moment, and rays of spiritual light suddenly appeared. Reaching a bottleneck in cultivation was originally very boring, because when one was stuck in a bottleneck, one would feel helpless, and their mind would go blank. They would not know how to break through it. That was why cultivators would choose to go out and explore, go out to fight, cultivate other ultimate arts, and so on. They wanted to brew new ideas after a long period of accumulation. Spiritual light was very precious. Dongbua Shueying's Tao of Mirage was only used as an incarnation technique, and he had never really put it to use. When he encountered the Dark World Absolute Art, he was instantly enlightened, which was why he immediately went into closed-door cultivation. He even extravagantly chose the most precious secret room in the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion, the Chia incense wood meditation room. In the 70,000 years of closed-door cultivation, he had indeed gained a lot. His comprehension of the first style of the dark world, the dark bubble, had reached an extremely high level, and even his Tao of Mirage had reached the bottleneck of the origin-birth realm. But after more than 70,000 years, the spiritual light gradually became sparse, and when it reached a bottleneck, it even dried up. The next step was to either rely on time or follow the usual routine. For example, if one cultivated in the palace of time for 1 or 2 billion years, one might be able to break through the bottleneck and step into the unity realm. This was already considered an extremely high level of comprehension. Otherwise, he would go out to fight and look for opportunities. Apart from that, there was another very extravagant method. Use a cultivation aid item. Dongbua Shuang had never used a fruit like the supplementary spirit fruit before. This was his first time using it. Firstly, it was for his own cultivation. Secondly, he wanted to feel the effect before giving it to his wife and son. The effect was indeed excellent. The Mirage's law system needs to be unified. Everything must return to one. Dongbua Shui Ying's mind was filled with inspiration, and he immediately started to comprehend them one by one. At this moment, his efficiency was extremely fast. Unity Realm. In the 5 great sacred worlds and the primal chaos void, they could be considered as true experts. According to the difficulty of the system, their strength after breaking through would vary, like the bloodline cultivation system, the ancestor-mother religion system, and the devour class system. The unity realm was comparatively weaker. For example, the laws of profound mysteries system of the witchcraft system was much stronger. A unity realm expert of the laws and profound mysteries system could easily get through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda if he cultivated for a long period. The stronger ones could even get through the 4th level of Star Pagoda, and the more talented ones could get through the 5th level. Dongbua Shuang was one of the most talented geniuses. He had broken through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda at the origin birth realm. Shuang, who was seated cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils were pitch black and filled with life. His entire being was emitting a unique aura. That was the aura of perfection. His entire being was like a deity weapon that had been refined countless times. His aura was extremely condensed, and the illusory world that appeared around him abruptly shrunk and condensed into a tiny point. This was very small, but it was very condensed and pure. It was much stronger and more stable than the illusory world from before. Unity Realm. Dongbua Shuang muttered softly. Within the inner world, Hong Long Long, the huge planet that was originally as big as the sun star, had been revolving according to the Mirage law system in the past. But now the Mirage law system had completely fused into a single dot. This was the brand new level of the Tao of Mirage, the Mirage origin. Everything was fused into one, forming the ultimate origin of the Mirage. The huge planet was rumbling. As it revolved, it was constantly collapsing and shrinking. Its size was becoming smaller and smaller. It was originally as big as the sun star, but it soon shrunk by 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000,000 times. It was smaller than an ordinary planet, smaller than 100 meters in diameter, and smaller than a human's fist. During the process of collapsing, its density was rapidly increasing. It was an unfathomable increase. Unity Realm experts like those who cultivated the strongest warrior system would increase the density of their bodies continuously. The higher the level, the stronger their bodies would be. Some bodies could even fight against void god weapons. Hence, in the strongest warrior system, Unity Realm experts were relatively strong. It wasn't hard for them to get through the 3rd level of the Star Pagoda, and some heaven-defying experts could even get through the 5th level. In history, there was one expert who got through the 7th level of the strongest warrior system. At that time, his body was ridiculously strong, comparable to an upper-graded void god weapon. The planet that was originally as big as the sun star had finally shrunk to the limit, turning into a black dot. It was so small that it was hard to measure. Or perhaps it did not have any physical meaning. It was just a dot in terms of pure energy. Its surroundings were collapsing and distorting. The laws of the mirage origin had become the core of its existence. If not for the laws of the mirage origin, its terrifying energy would have exploded, and Dongbui Shui Ying's body would be blasted into pieces. Mirage origin. It is also the origin of everything, and the future cosmos origin. Dongbui Shui Ying understood this point. This point was the true ultimate origin of the laws and profound mysteries system. Only from this point could it develop into a true miniature primal chaos cosmos. That was the true embryonic form of a cosmos. With such a cosmos in the body, primal chaos realm giants of the laws and profound mysteries system would be powerful too. Naturally, as long as one could reach the primal chaos realm, the other systems would also have their own heaven-defying strengths. And if one were to create a world within the primal chaos, allowing the primal chaos to evolve into a true cosmos, that would be the final realm existence, Cosmos God. And the origin of the final evolution of the cosmos would be the origin condensed by Unity Realm experts. Wang. Within his sea of consciousness, his true deity heart immediately used the newly comprehended laws of the mirage source to construct his soul. His soul body instantly became more reserved, and his soul became much more condensed, undergoing a qualitative change. His comprehension and deduction speed increased once again. The higher the realm, the faster his deduction and thinking speed would be. That was why cosmos gods could create cosmos, and even comprehend a terrifying absolute art that could destroy a sacred world. That was a strength that others could only look up to. Opening his eyes, Dongbui Shui Ying revealed a joyous look. He had broken through to the Unity realm using the Tao of Mirage. It was beyond his expectations that he could reach the Unity realm so quickly. This was the first time he broke through a major level in the laws and profound mysteries system faster than the Void Walker system. It has been 2,300 years since I ate the supplementary spiritual fruit, and I've broken through to the Unity realm. Dongbui Shui Ying felt a chill existing in his soul. The unique energy contained within the supplementary spiritual fruit has yet to be exhausted. I should continue cultivating. He did not dare to waste any of it. The supplementary spiritual fruit would usually last for a period of time after being eaten. During this period, he had to focus on cultivating. Dark World. Dongbui Shui Ying continued cultivating this absolute art. He had just grasped hold of the mirage origin. Previously, he had grasped quite a bit of the first style of Dark World Dark Bubble. The reason why he was stuck at that level was because his realm was insufficient. Now that he had a huge breakthrough in the Tao of Mirage, reaching the level of the mirage origin, his realm was sufficient. At that moment, it became much easier for him to comprehend the first style of Dark World Dark Bubble. Chapter 853. Dongbui Shui Ying sat cross-legged. The surrounding illusory dark world was appearing time after time. Occasionally, it would tremble and be destroyed. As time passed, the illusory dark world that appeared became more stable. It is quite complicated. The closer I am to mastering it, the more profound the structure of this dark world becomes. Dongbui Shui Ying praised in his heart. The reason for the existence of the dark world was for the final destruction. The more stable it was, the stronger the energy it contained would be, and the greater the final destruction power would be. Dongbui Shui Ying continued to ponder over the parts that he had doubts about. Gradually, the doubts he had towards this style were lessening. Finally, Dongbui Shui Ying felt everything becoming clear. He understood the first style of Dark World, the Dark Bubble. He no longer had any doubts. I have succeeded. Dongbui Shui Ying looked at the Chia incense wood walls in a daze. A faint fragrance permeated into his nose. I have mastered the first style of Dark World just like this? Dongbui Shui Ying felt slightly dazed. He had expected this moment. But after grasping the mirage origin and stepping into the Unity realm, he still felt complicated when he mastered this style. Because he understood what it meant to comprehend this style. This absolute art had a total of 2 styles. Grasping the first style was sufficient for one to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda. He would be a true heaven-defying expert at the Unity realm. Even if he faced the true body of a primal chaos giant, he would still be able to survive. He would definitely be considered an ultra-strong expert in the entire 5 great sacred worlds. Against other Unity Realm experts, even peak Unity Realm experts, he would be able to sweep through them. The 5th level would allow him to reach the boundary of the Primal Chaos Realm, and he would be closer to a true Primal Chaos Giant. Previously, I might have the Black Gourd, but firstly, I have to pull out the cork to release the fireball. This requires an extremely short period of time. If an extremely powerful expert were to ambush me, this short period of time would suffice. Shuang was clear of this point. The protective treasure was ultimately not a product of one's own comprehension, and thus had some flaws. Furthermore, even though its power is strong, its combat techniques are too weak. It is purely a smash word. If I meet an expert who got through the 5th level of Star Pagoda, he could easily toy with me. His strength was too great, but his cultivation was too low. That was his previous weakness. Only the strongest sacred emissary in this base of the ancient sacred religion was only at the peak of the Unity Realm. Only then would he be able to unleash the full might of the Black Gourd Fireball. If he encountered someone stronger, the Black Gourd Fireball might not even be able to touch the enemy. Now, I've made up for it in terms of cultivation level. Dongbo Shuang revealed a smile. Dongbo Shuang tapped lightly with his finger. An illusory bubble of darkness appeared on his fingertip. This bubble of darkness was several meters in diameter. Then it materialized. When it materialized, it naturally needed to absorb the power of the world around it. Then it rapidly shrank and exploded. However, it was only the space inside the bubble that exploded. The void shattered and turned pitch black. This was the saint's realm. How stable was the void? It was still shattered. Even though the amount of power of the heaven and earth swept up is very little, with the help of the dark bubble, the power of this explosion is still much stronger than my previous spear art. Dongbo Shuang was merely practicing. He did not use his full power yet. If he were to use his full power, he would need to sweep up a sufficient amount of power of the heaven and earth. The commotion would be too great. It has been over 8,000 years since I finished eating the supplementary spiritual fruit. Dongbo Shuang could feel the coldness of his soul. The unique energy of the fruit had yet to be exhausted. I have to hurry up and comprehend Walker's hidden secret. Dongbo Shuang was unwilling to waste the duration of the fruit's energy. He was still some distance away from reaching the Unity Realm in his Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripples. Comparatively speaking, he was much closer to breaking through in Walker's hidden secret. Indeed, at this moment, his soul at the Unity Realm was much stronger than before. After eating the fruit, and with the assistance of the Chiya incense wood chamber, his cultivation speed was indeed extremely fast. In just 300 years, Dongbo Shuang broke through to the 30th level of Walker's hidden secret. Following that, another 600 years passed. Dongbo Shuang abruptly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with helplessness and regret. In the end, it was exhausted. The energy of the supplementary spiritual fruit is finally exhausted. The days of rapid cultivation are over. The moment that coldness disappeared, Dongbo Shuang felt his soul's comprehension speed plummeting. This feeling of loss was truly unbearable. Not bad. The effects of this fruit are indeed great. Dongbo Shuang was rather satisfied. It has lasted for a total of 9,000 years. Previously, I was at the Origin Birth Realm. Now I am at the Unity Realm. After eating this fruit, my energy would naturally be depleted quickly. If Jingqiu and Yuer were to eat it, their souls would be much weaker than mine. Thus, the rate of depletion would be much slower. Furthermore, the effects would only be better. In summary, items that could assist in cultivation did have the effect of increasing one's perception. The only flaw was that the duration was short. However, during these 9,000 years of cultivation, Dongbo Shuang estimated that if he were to stay in the Palace of Time, he would probably need 1 or 2 billion years to break through to the Unity Realm in his Tao of Mirage. After that, he would need another 1 or 2 billion years to grasp the dark bubble. After tasting the taste of items that could assist in cultivation, he wasn't used to cultivating slowly. The stronger I am, the weaker the effects of items that could assist in cultivation. Dongbua Shuang thought. When I ate the supplementary spiritual fruit at the origin birth realm, I felt that it was extremely helpful. But after stepping into the unity realm, when I was comprehending the dark bubble, I felt that the effects of the supplementary spiritual fruit had weakened. If I were at the primal chaos realm, the effects would be much weaker. At the very least, it would be slightly useful to those at the primal chaos realm. But to cosmos gods, it was completely useless. Even if he ate it, it would be a waste. In addition, items that could assist in cultivation were too precious and expensive. Hence, it was normal for cultivators to spend a long period of time cultivating. Usually, only during crucial moments like reaching a bottleneck, when comprehending an absolute art, or when a primal chaos giant would spend a few hundred origin world rocks to purchase some precious items to assist in cultivation. But in the end, the cultivator might still be unable to break through. Items that could assist in cultivation were not omnipotent. Dongbua Shuang was indeed talented in the Tao of Mirage. That was why he could achieve such miraculous effects. Even if he did not eat the fruit, he could still achieve it by spending more time. Outside the Jia incense wood cultivation room. Jia. The door opened. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang walked out from within. Pavilion Master Yuqi was currently waiting for him outside. Just nice 100,000 years. Elder Dongbua is in a rush to enter closed-door cultivation, and I believe you should have a huge harvest, Pavilion Master Yuqi was still passionately praising Dongbua Shuang, but suddenly his expression froze. He said with slight astonishment, Elder Dongbua, you have reached the Unity Realm? Amen. Dongbua Shuang revealed a grin. He only came out after accumulating 100,000 years, because he required an origin world rock to cultivate for 100,000 years. If he did not cultivate for 100,000 years, he would have to pay one origin world rock. Congratulations, congratulations. Pavilion Master Yuqi said. Congratulations to Elder Dongbua for stepping into the Unity Realm so quickly. I believe you should be able to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda soon. But what he did not know was that the current Dongbua Shuang already had the strength to get through the 5th level. In terms of the Tao of Mirage, Dongbua Shuang's talent was indeed higher than the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple. He had grasped the true meaning of Mirage at a young age, and the grade 1 true meaning he grasped when he was a transcendent was the true meaning of the world. Clearly, he was extremely talented in the construction of worlds. Thus, the absolute art dark world was incomparably suitable for him. Deducting one origin world rock from the cultivation room, this is 118 origin world rocks for Elder. Pavilion Master Yuqi respectfully passed over a storage wristband. Dongbua Shuang took it and checked through it. Within it were many rocks that were emitting strange colors. Even at his current realm, his soul still felt an intense desire to devour them. Many thanks. Dongbua Shuang turned around and walked out. Pavilion Master Yuqi sent him off all the way to the main entrance of the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion. Who? Dongbua Shuang looked at the distant sun in the sky. This was the sun of the sacred world. It has been a long time since I saw the sun. Dongbua Shuang's mood was extremely good. The leap in his strength had broadened his mind. With his current strength, it was much easier for him to obtain even more formidable cultivation materials. Let's go out for a walk and find a good restaurant to eat. Dongbua Shuang, who was in a good mood, walked out of the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion and strolled along the streets of the celestial water city. He wanted to find a good restaurant to have a feast. Amen? He is out. Within a small courtyard, the short and plump male forefather Black Loath, who was seated cross-legged and constantly releasing his senses, suddenly opened his eyes. His dark golden eyes were filled with cold intent. Forefather, you have made me wait for a long time. Chapter 854. The short and fat man, Forefather Black Loath, could clearly sense that Dongbua Shuang had walked out of the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion and was strolling leisurely on the streets. He was no longer in a hurry. After all, he, Forefather Black Loath, would only be able to unleash his full strength if he had time to prepare. Unity Realm? Forefather Black Loath frowned slightly. No wonder he stayed in the 7-star Oceanic Pavilion for 100,000 years. So it seems that he has comprehended something and broke through to the Unity realm. This Dongbua Shuiying is really a genius. His cultivation speed is quite fast too. If given more time, after he breaks through to the Unity realm, he could consolidate his realm and comprehend absolute arts to increase his strength. He might even be able to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda. That would be troublesome. Now, Forefather He Yan's eyes were filled with coldness. Forefather Black Loath didn't care about the fact that he had just broken through and had yet to convert his realm into strength. Only 100,000 years. Time was too short. The 7-star Oceanic Pavilion did not have the ability to accelerate time like the Palace of Time. Even if one ate some treasures that could aid in cultivation, it would be impossible to improve so much in a short 100,000 years. However, Forefather Black Loath did not expect Dongbua Shuiying to be so talented in the Tao of Mirage. His comprehension speed of the Dark World's absolute art was extremely fast. Furthermore, after eating the supplementary spiritual fruit, he had already mastered the first move of the Dark World. As an Inner Hall Elder, he has a protective treasure. The protective treasures of the Inner Hall Elders of the Great Void Heaven Temple could resist against primal chaos experts. He had to be fast. My attack will be so fast that he won't be able to react in time. He won't even have time to activate his protective treasure. Forefather Black Loath knew the difficulty of this assassination. Once it was activated, not to mention an incarnation, even if his true body came, it would take some time to kill Dongbua Shuiying. The Great Void Heaven Temple's old ancestor Tianyu and the Sword Master might also come. 50%. Forefather Black Loath was solemn as well. He was extremely confident. However, if he wanted to kill Dongbua Shuiying before the latter could react, he would only dare to say that he had a 50% chance of success. On the street, after stepping into the Unity realm and grasping a new absolute art, Dongbua Shuiying was in a good mood as he walked on the streets. He looked at the bustling crowd. Many of them were deities, world deities, and there were even some transcendents. On the other hand, the crowd naturally avoided Dongbua Shuiying. After all, the aura of a Unity realm expert was completely different, and it was enough to make them revere him. Unity realm experts were considered experts no matter where they were. They could easily join the deacon group of Celestial Water City. In the ancient saint cult, one could also become a saint envoy. Boom! Dongbua Shuiying, who was dressed in white, was walking with a smile on his face. Suddenly his expression changed. Who is it? A shout suddenly rang out. The surrounding space within 1,000 miles was completely still. The crowd on the streets and the residents in the surrounding residences, regardless of whether they were weak transcendents or powerful Unity realm experts. At this moment, they all fell silent, unable to move. Everything within 1,000 li was shrouded in darkness. The world of darkness enveloped 1,000 li, suppressing everything. And Dongbua Shuiying was the emperor of this region. The white-robed Dongbua Shuiying looked towards a location within the world of darkness, with killing intent in his eyes. A figure had appeared there. This figure was the only other person in the entire dark world other than Dongbua Shuiying who could move. He had a short and plump body and seemed ordinary. Only his pair of dark golden eyes were looking at Dongbua Shuiying with shock. So powerful, Dongbua Shuiying could feel the suppression coming from the other party's law domain. That's right, law domain. After becoming a true god ruler, one would possess an eternal law, and it was sufficient for one to form a domain. This domain was something that could be released at all times. Within this domain, the ruler would be able to speak the law, and the moment an enemy entered the domain, they would be discovered. Unless one's realm was extremely high, void gods, origin birth realm, Unity realm, primal chaos realm. As one's realm increased, their law domain would become stronger. Of which, in the same great realm, the more profound one's usage of the law was, the more perfect one's law domain would be. And Dongbua Shuiying had reached the Unity realm using the Tao of Mirage, and had grasped the Dark World's first style dark bubble. Hence, he was able to construct the operating laws of his law domain, according to the method of the dark bubble. That was why his law domain was extremely profound and powerful. Being able to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda at the Unity Realm showed how unique the dark bubble was to Primal Chaos Realm experts. Forefather Black Loath was an ancient Primal Chaos Realm expert. He might be able to infiltrate the law domain of ordinary Unity Realm experts easily, but it was impossible for Dongbua Shuang to infiltrate the law domain of an existence who could get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda. It was dark and silent in the region of 500 li. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang was facing Forefather Black Loath from afar. Hong. The surface of Dongbua Shuang's body emitted layers of golden light. It was the protective talisman of the Inner Hall Elder that was activated. At the same time when the protective treasure was activated, Dongbua Shuang had a thought. Hua, the illusory world of darkness directly descended from nothingness into reality. It immediately devoured the world energy. The enormous world energy caused the energy of the entire celestial water city to tremble. This world of darkness rapidly shrunk. It avoided all other cultivators and rapidly surrounded Forefather Black Loath at the center. Forefather Black Loath looked at this scene. His dark golden eyes looked at Dongbua Shuang. There was a hint of a smile by the edge of his mouth. You have just reached the Unity Realm, yet your law domain is so dense and profound that it is comparable to a miniature cosmos. Seeing this technique of yours, it should be sufficient for you to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda. I accept my defeat wholeheartedly. Forefather Black Loath directly transmitted. Following that, the world of darkness shrunk until it was like a bubble, completely enveloping Forefather Black Loath. Pa! The bubble of darkness immediately exploded. The insides of the bubble were completely destroyed. Forefather Black Loath had a smile on his face as he looked at Dongbua Shuang with interest. Following that, he disappeared silently. Everything regained its calm. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang stood on the street. The surface of his body was dazzling with golden light. The surrounding world of darkness was still pervading. He had even deliberately expanded the world of darkness to a range of 5 million kilometers. In the sacred world, the law domain of a Unity Realm expert could only be maintained at a range of 500 kilometers. But this dark bubble technique could be maintained at a maximum of 5 million kilometers. It really dissipated. Dongbua Shuang frowned. It seems to dissipate on its own? The destructive power of the dark bubble was indeed strong, but it did not feel any resistance at all. Clearly, the other party did not resist and dissipated on his own accord. There are no suspicious people within 5 million kilometers. Dongbua Shuang carefully inspected the area. Hong. The entire protective array of the celestial water city was activated. The colorful light was dazzling, causing the citizens of the celestial water city to raise their heads in shock. The surging energy from the protective array caused the world to tremble, and the citizens within 5 million kilometers of the world of darkness were also shocked and puzzled. They could see the sun and the sky through the world of darkness, and they did not feel any damage. South, a figure directly teleported and appeared in midair. It was none other than a man wearing a dark blue long robe. Elder Dongbua, what happened? The dark blue long robe man asked. There was a powerful fluctuation earlier. It was the destruction of the dark bubble. Even though it was only within the bubble, the intensity of the fluctuation was still too strong. It frightened the array spirit of the celestial water city, so much that it immediately informed the incarnation of the celestial water hall master. Who? Dongbua Shuang retracted the world of darkness and flew to the side of the incarnation of the celestial water hall master. However, he still maintained the protective golden light around his body. He did not dare to be careless. I just suffered an assassination, Dongbua Shuang solemnly said. It should be the incarnation of a primal chaos expert. Chapter 855. Currently, the great city protecting array of the celestial water city was fully activated. Any life form within could forget about escaping. This was much stronger than the protective array of a small nation like the Golden Wing Nation. It was personally refined by Forefather Tianyu, and even primal chaos experts could not escape from it. In the sky, The blue-robed celestial water hall master and the white-robed Dongbua Shuang stood side by side in the sky. Assassination? Celestial water hall master's expression changed. You suffered from an assassination? I'm very formidable. Fortunately, I broke through to the Unity realm before this. Otherwise, I would have been in danger. Dongbua Shuang solemnly said. The other party's infiltration technique was formidable. Fortunately, he had reconstructed his law domain based on the dark bubble, allowing him to discover the enemy. If it were before he broke through, he would have relied on the plate ripple diagram to construct his law domain at the third-level star pagoda strength. If he could not discover the enemy, he would only discover it when the enemy's attack landed on him. If he was lucky, he might be able to activate his protective treasure at the brink of life and death. If he was unlucky, he might be killed in a single strike. Who dares to assassinate an inner hall elder of my great void heaven temple? Celestial Water Hall Master looked down at the vast celestial water city. And it is within our primal chaos city. Celestial Water Hall Master's gaze landed on the location where the ripple came from. It was also the location where the dark bubble created by Dongbua Shuang was destroyed. The surrounding scene wanted time to flow back to check the past. Celestial Water Hall Master saw time flowing back on the street, and the white-robed Dongbua Shuang appearing once again. The surrounding was dark once again. Following that, time flowed back before collapsing. I can't see through it. Celestial Water Hall Master gritted his teeth. He is really cautious. Even I can't see what happened at that time. Elder Dongbua, can you recognize who he is? Celestial Water Hall Master asked despite knowing that there was no hope. I don't know him amongst the primal chaos experts and cosmos gods that I know of. Dongbua Shuang said. He should have changed his appearance. Cosmos god? Haha. It is impossible for someone of that status to assassinate you. That is too embarrassing. Celestial Water Hall Master shook his head. I wonder which primal chaos expert is so daring. This was enough to infuriate the Great Void Heaven Temple. It was normal for the assassin to change his appearance and aura. Hurry back to the Great Void Heaven Temple. I've already reported this matter to the Heaven Palace. The Great Void Heaven Temple will definitely not let this matter rest. The Celestial Water Underworld Hall Master said. In order to find traces, there are many other methods besides body, appearance, and aura. It's not that easy. Yes. Dongbua Shuang nodded. He had just broken through to the Unity realm, and was originally planning to return to the Great Void Heaven Temple. Furthermore, this assassination attempt had raised his vigilance. Who exactly wanted to kill him? He should not have any powerful enemies in the 5 Great Saint Worlds. Although his master, Gu Qi, had caused a lot of trouble, he had never exposed himself. Shuang immediately returned to the Great Void Heaven Temple from the Celestial Water City. Great Void Heaven Temple. Forefather Tian Yu and the Sword Master were seated at the highest position. Below them, there were 6 hall masters seated on both sides. On both sides of the hall, there were inner hall elders. Dongbua Shuang was also standing amongst the inner hall elders. To actually dare to assassinate an inner hall elder of my Great Void Heaven Temple. Forefather Tian Yu sat there and said coldly, Inquisitive Sky Hall Master, I'll have to trouble you. Alright, let me see who is so daring. One of the 6 hall masters stood up. He had long silver hair and black skin. He was none other than the hall masters of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The Inquisitive Sky Hall Master. Inquisitive Sky Hall Master. Even if he was in the Great Void Heaven Temple, as long as he was willing, he could easily scout any part of the 5 Great Saint Worlds, or even the Primal Chaos Void. Wang. Inquisitive Sky Hall Master's black eyes stared at the void in front of him. A scene appeared in the void. It was a street in the Celestial Water City. Dongbua Shuang was leisurely walking on the street when the attack suddenly descended. In a radius of 1,000 miles, it was completely silent. Within 1,000 miles, countless people couldn't move at all. Only Dongbua Shuang and that enemy could move. MHM? Forefather Tian Yu Sword Master, as well as the hall masters and inner hall elders below, were all shocked. What a powerful law domain. Dongbua Shuang sighed in admiration. The Inquisitive Sky Hall Master was truly impressive. That assassin had clearly messed up spacetime, making it hard for the Celestial Water Hall Master to detect him. Yet the inquisitive Sky Hall Master was able to do so easily. This short and fat man isn't any of the experts we know of. He must have changed his appearance and aura. Inquisitive Sky Hall Master coldly spoke. As long as he makes a move, we will be able to deduce his identity based on his moves. He should be very cautious, and will use some unknown moves. The other Hall Masters spoke as well. In the 5 great sacred worlds, experts specialized in different techniques. Based on the techniques they specialized in, they would be able to deduce the identity of the assassin. Imichum? The expressions of everyone present changed. Because in the following scene, a golden protective light appeared on the surface of Dongbo Shui Ying's body. Furthermore, the dark world descended and rapidly shrunk, turning into a black bubble that destroyed that short and fat man. But Forefather Tianyu, Sword Master, and the others were very knowledgeable. They could see that the short and fat man did not resist at all. Instead, he took the initiative to disperse his incarnation. But what shocked them was the power of this black bubble. All of them turned their gazes towards Dongbo Shuang. Their eyes were filled with shock, admiration and doubt. Dongbo Shuang. Forefather Tianyu said, "You should be able to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda now, right?" Reporting to Forefather, Dongbo Shuang immediately replied respectfully, "I bought the sole copy of the Dark World Absolute Art during the Treasure Convention, held by the 7-Star Oceanic Pavilion. This absolute art is quite suitable for me, allowing me to comprehend and break through to the Unity Realm. I even grasped the first style of Dark World, the Dark Bubble. Naturally, the supplementary spiritual fruit has helped me as well. The moment I saw it, I was able to recognize it as one of the famous moves of Dark World Master. Of the 6 Hall Masters seated there was a black-haired old man who chuckled. The previous time, Elder Dongbo was still at the Origin Birth Realm. This time, it has only been 100,000 years since he went to the Celestial Water City, and he has already stepped into the Unity Realm. Furthermore, he has grasped such an absolute art. Looking at all of you, I feel really old. Primal Chaos Hall Master is overpraising me." Dongbo Shuang immediately replied. This black-haired old man was the person ranked first in strength in the Great Void Heaven Temple. Primal Chaos Hall Master. He was unfathomable. To think that I had to bitterly cultivate for 100 billion years after stepping into the Unity Realm before I could get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda. Compared to Elder Dongbo, I am truly ashamed. He has just reached the Unity Realm, yet he is so strong. Admirable. The group of Inner Hall Elders were all praising him. They were all admiring him from the bottom of their hearts. Currently, all the Inner Hall Elders of the Great Void Heaven Temple were at the 5th level of strength. And Dongbo Shuang was simply too talented. He had reached the 5th level strength. It was likely that he would have a high chance of breaking through to the 6th level in the future. Furthermore, with such comprehension ability, the possibility of him reaching the Primal Chaos Realm was relatively high. In addition, the Great Void Heaven Temple had strict rules and regulations. They were still very united internally. They were still very happy to see Dongbo Shuang rising rapidly. Inquisitive Sky Hall Master, are you able to investigate his identity? Forefather Tianyu asked. He took the initiative to dissipate without leaving behind any traces. It is impossible for me to investigate his identity. Inquisitive Sky Hall Master shook his head and returned to his position. Let me try. Suddenly a voice sounded. Everyone looked over. The one who spoke was none other than Sword Master. Sword Master's eyes were deep and unfathomable. Countless divine runes were revolving in the void in front of him. Dongbo Shuiying's figure could be vaguely seen. At the same time, he was trying his best to form another figure. That blurred figure suddenly turned into an old man. The old man grinned. Haha, Myriad World Tavern. This is a fair trade. I hope for your understanding. Following that, all the illusory figures dissipated. The expressions of Forefather Tianyu and Sword Master changed. Myriad World Old Ghost. Sword Master snorted coldly. Forefather Tianyu understood that this enmity could no longer be avenged. Myriad World Tavern? Dongbo Shuang also understood. An enemy had hired the Myriad World Tavern to kill him. Who exactly is it? End of this chapter. Star. Chapter 856. Who could the enemy be? Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master frowned. With Myriad Realm Tavern Master obstructing them, it was hard to find out the identity of the enemy using secret techniques. Even though they were unhappy with Myriad Realm Tavern Master, they were helpless. Myriad Realm Tavern Master. He should be ranked first amongst the cosmos gods in terms of survivability. He specialized in avatar techniques. Avatars and not incarnations. One had to know that primal chaos realm, or cosmos god, would usually have a single true body. They could at most refine some incarnations, and it was a minor matter if the incarnation dissipated. But the moment the true body was killed, it would be a true death. Even the top few final realm existences like Sacred Master, Ancestor Mother, and Wuxia only had a single true body. But Myriad Realm Tavern Master was the only exception amongst all final realm existences. Every single avatar of his was his true body, and he knew that he had a few thousand avatars scattered across the 5 great sacred worlds and the primal chaos void. As long as one avatar was alive, he could never kill Myriad Realm Tavern Master. Hence, even though he created the Myriad Realm Tavern in a relatively arrogant manner, and had offended many superpowers by assassinating Dongbo Shuang this time, the other party could only suppress their anger. However, everyone could only swallow their anger, because the Myriad World Tavern Master was a loner. He didn't establish a sect, and even every Myriad World Tavern was managed by his avatar. They could not kill him. And he had no worries. He was powerful too. He had many avatars and could appear and disappear unpredictably. Various superpowers would rather fight with Sacred Master than Myriad Realm Tavern Master. That was why the status of Myriad Realm Tavern Master was so special. Dongbo, can you guess who the enemy is? Among the Hall Masters, Ancestor Devil asked. To be able to pay such a huge price to invite the Myriad Realm Tavern, he must have an extraordinary background. Dongbo Shuang felt puzzled too. After I left my hometown Cosmos, I offended Heaven Weeping Sect Master. He doesn't dare, and it is impossible for Ancestor Bone to do so. Ancestor Devil directly answered. After that, I went into closed-door cultivation within the Heaven Palace. After that, I went to the Celestial Water City and destroyed a base of the ancient saint cult. Dongbo Shuang pondered and said, I have only been in the sacred world for a short period of time, and there are very few people that I have a grudge with. Back then, among the members of the ancient sacred religion that I killed, there was a person with a special status. He was an ordinary Unity Realm expert. However, he has a peak Unity Realm mutated beast following him. Furthermore, he has the most treasures. With that, Dongbo Shuang waved his hand, and the appearance of the black-robed man, Sacred Emissary Qi Yin, appeared in midair. Because there were too few people who had enmity with him, Dongbo Shuang thought of the black-robed man, Sacred Envoy Qi Yin. Ancient Saint cult member? An ordinary Unity Realm expert, actually has a peak Unity Realm mutated beast following him? The higher-ups of the Great Void Heaven Temple had their own guesses. Maybe he has a unique background. Forefather Tian Yu shook his head. It's a pity that we have no way of investigating the ancient sacred world. The ancient sacred world was a forbidden ground for many superpowers. All cultivators in the ancient sacred world believed in the Sacred Master. The light of the Sacred Master illuminated the entire ancient sacred world, and the internal situation within the ancient sacred world, like which experts had relationships with each other. Unless it was made public, it was impossible to investigate. Even cosmos gods did not dare to barge in. The moment they entered, the Sacred Master would immediately discover them. With the unparalleled strength of the Sacred Master, even cosmos gods would die if they entered. Currently, Dongbo's strength has greatly increased. It is impossible for us to assassinate him, Ancestor Devil said. Since that's the case, we'll temporarily drop this matter. Dongbo should be more careful of the ancient sacred religion in the future. Amen. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Guessing that the enemy was from the ancient sacred religion, There was nothing much to say, because the Great Void Heaven Temple and the ancient sacred religion were mortal enemies. Both parties wished for the other party to die, and they would not show mercy if there was an opportunity. But the ancient sacred religion was very careful too. It was too difficult to kill a primal chaos expert from the ancient sacred religion. After the gathering, everyone left the Great Void Heaven Temple. As they left, Elder Dongbua, a black-haired old man, flew over. Dongbua Shuang saw this and immediately said, "Primal Chaos Hall Master." This person's strength was deep and unfathomable. Even though the intelligence was not publicized, Dongbua Shuang deduced that he should have gotten through the highest 9th level of the Star Pagoda, according to the evaluation of his teacher, Gu Qi. "I have a matter that I need Elder Dongbua's help on," the black-haired old man said. "What is it?" "Hall Master, feel free to say it. I'll naturally do my best," Dongbua Shuang said. The black-haired old man softly nodded. "I am slightly interested in the dark world. Can you let me take a look?" "Naturally. I know that you have paid quite a lot to buy it. I'll give you 5 million contribution points. How about that?" "Sure, of course. I have cultivated for a short period, and have practically spent all my treasures on this dark world absolute art. I am more than happy to be able to obtain 5 million contribution points. Dongbua Shuang said. Primal Chaos Hall Master was different from that forefather Quan Miao. Forefather Quan Miao specialized in the illusory realm and desired the dark world, and Primal Chaos Hall Master had never heard of him specialized in the illusory realm. It might be because he was slightly interested and wanted to take a look. It was also because his strength was much higher than forefather Quan Miao and Saint Wang Ming. Even Ancestor Devil was far from his level. He had many treasures too. Naturally, he disdained to take advantage of Dongbua Shuang. 1 million contribution points to Primal Chaos Hall Master was an easy sum. All right. The black-haired old man chuckled and nodded. At the same time, Dongbua Ying's communication talisman received a notification that his contribution points had increased by 5 million. Dongbua Ying was astonished at Primal Chaos Hall Master's straightforwardness. He immediately took out the Dark World book. The black-haired old man flipped through it before receiving the inheritance. Slightly interesting, the black-haired old man chuckled. It's a pity that Dark World Master died too early. It is indeed rare for Elder Dongbua to grasp it so quickly. He was slightly curious about this absolute art. Because Dongbua Shuang grasped it too quickly, it made Primal Chaos Hall Master even more curious. How could an absolute art that could allow one to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda be grasped so quickly? That was why he wanted to flip through it. If Dongbua Shuang spent a long time to grasp it, Primal Chaos Hall Master would likely not be interested in it. I might be able to create an absolute art after pondering over it. The black-haired old man chuckled. He was at this realm because he wanted to experience all sorts of new cultivation directions. He wanted to study and ponder over them, wanting to touch his own body and take that final step to reach the final realm. After all, he could vaguely see the final realm, yet he could not break through. It is good that Hall Master can gain something from it, Dongbua Shuang said. You have obtained the Dark World absolute art and cultivated it within 100,000 years. There shouldn't be a need to keep this a secret, right? The black-haired old man asked. If there is no need to keep it a secret, I can help you out. Who knows? There might be some experts who are willing to pay a price to learn this dark world. Of course there is no need to keep it a secret, Dongbua Shuang answered. There were many absolute geniuses at the Unity Realm in history. There were quite a few who got through the 6th level of Star Pagoda, and there were even some who got through the 7th level. Now that he had such strength, there was no need for him to conceal it. Because with his current strength, even Primal Chaos true bodies could forget about assassinating him stealthily. The moment he discovered them, he could activate his protective talisman. Hence, reaching this level, he had the confidence to face all kinds of dangers. Knowing that you have cultivated it so quickly, there must be some old fellows who are curious and might come to buy the dark world to have a look. The black-haired old man laughed. Remember, You have to pay a fixed price of 150 origin world rocks. Any less and those old fellows might feel heartache. I understand. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Primal Chaos Hall Master had lived for too long and was incredibly powerful. The old man he mentioned could possibly be some other primal chaos giants who were similarly stuck at the final bottleneck. Only those old men who were rich enough and were seeking to break through the bottleneck would be willing to fork out more than 100 origin world rocks out of curiosity. It was impossible for experts like Ancestor Devil to be so extravagant. Amen. The black-haired old man chuckled. He was willing to slaughter those old fellows for the sake of his fellow disciples. Chapter 857. In the vast primal chaos void, there was a primal chaos land that was filled with many flame patterns. At the center of the land, there was an expert with a stone body standing in midair. He closed his eyes, and there were many fire dragons flying out from his body into the array of this primal chaos land. Experts with bodies of stone were also covered in black armor. Only their arms, heads, and other parts of their bodies were exposed. Emohua. A voice sounded. The stone male standing in midair slowly opened his eyes. His eyelids and pupils were made of stone, just that his pupils were flowing with flames. The stone male looked to his side. There was already a blurred primal chaos illusory figure appearing. It was a black-haired old man. Primal chaos, what's the matter? The stone male grinned. He and Primal Chaos Hall Master were both old fellows that existed since the most primitive ancient sacred world era. They had lived for a long time and were extremely strong. There were not many who could make him, Emohua, a friend. Usually, they were old fellows from the same era, or those with strength that he acknowledged. I naturally have good news to tell you, the illusory figure of Primal Chaos Hall Master said. My great void heaven temple has a young brat called Dongbo Shuang. He has obtained an absolute art called Dark World. After obtaining it, he reached the Unity Realm within 100,000 years, and reached the 5th level Star Pagoda strength. What? The stone male was slightly startled. He obtained an absolute art, reached the Unity Realm within 100,000 years, and reached the 5th level Star Pagoda strength? Is there any time acceleration? There isn't. It isn't hard for you to investigate this. Why would I lie? Primal Chaos Hall Master said. Dark World? Is it the absolute art of that brat called Dark World Master? The stone male asked. Right. The illusory figure of Primal Chaos Hall Master continued. I have studied this absolute art and found it quite interesting. Creating an incomparably mysterious world is all for the sake of nurturing a killing technique. Currently, both you and I are stuck at the final step and are trying to open a cosmos from the primal chaos. I feel that you can comprehend the world structure of this absolute art. Perhaps it might be helpful to you. All right, hurry up and come to the Great Void Heaven Temple if you want to learn it. There is no bargaining. 150 origin world rocks for one chance. Since you're here, you can accompany me for a drink and a chat. It's been a long time since we last met. The stone man pondered for a moment before smiling. All right, I'll head over as soon as possible. He believed that with Primal Chaos Hall Master's status, he would disdain lying for this little bit of origin world rocks. If what he said was true, he was indeed very interested. The absolute art of the Dark World was created by a Unity Realm genius. Now another genius had gotten it, and he reached the Unity Realm in just 100,000 years. Furthermore, he relied on it to reach the 5th level Star Pagoda strength. Was this absolute art that easy to learn? And if the structure of the world was really unique, perhaps it might really be of some help in opening up a universe from the primal chaos. As long as it was of some help, it would be worth it. Within the myriad hall of the Great Void Heaven Temple, after reaching the Unity Realm, Dongbo Shuang came to the myriad hall to read through the scriptures. He flipped through the scriptures personally written by these experts. Other than receiving the information, just the aura left behind by these experts gave Dongbo Shuang some insights. Elder Dongbo, come over to my place. Primal Chaos Hall Master transmitted. Bring along your original copy of the Dark World. All right. Dongbo Shuang's eyes brightened. He immediately left the Myriad Hall Master. Very soon, he came to the Primal Chaos Hall, where the Hall Master was currently staying. Within a courtyard, two figures were seated opposite each other. There was a long table in front of them, and there was good wine on the table. The two of them were currently drinking and chatting. Elder Dongbua, Primal Chaos Hall Master, saw Dongbua Shuiying and greeted. Dongbua Shuiying hurriedly walked over. At the same time, he noticed the male opposite Primal Chaos Hall Master. This was a skinny and fair male. He had two fangs exposed, and his aura was very reserved. General Hatchet Palace Master. Dongbua Shuiying immediately recognized him. General Hatchet. He was the strongest bloodline descendant of Devil Mountain Primogenitor. He was also the strongest primal chaos expert on the current Primogenito Island. Relying on the bloodline cultivation system, reaching the primal chaos realm was the limit. This General Hatchet Palace Master had also cultivated the strongest warrior system. Hence, even though his body was skinny and white and seemed weak in reality, his body was much more terrifying than Dongbua Shuiying's high-graded Void God weapon. This was an old man whose strength was similar to Primal Chaos Hall Master. Here are 150 Origin World Rocks. General Hatchet Palace Master was very straightforward. He waved his hand, and a pile of Origin World Rocks flew over. Since the other party was straightforward, Dongbua Shuiying was naturally straightforward as well. After receiving the Origin World Rocks, he flipped his hand and passed the original copy of the Dark World to General Hatchet Palace Master. After receiving it, General Hatchet Palace Master flipped through it before closing it. Slightly interesting. General Hatchet Palace Master threw the book back to Dongbua Shuiying. At the same time, he shook his head at Primal Chaos Hall Master. Primal Chaos. Even though this absolute art has a unique style in terms of the world structure, the difficulty isn't low. I have never said that the difficulty isn't low. Primal Chaos Hall Master replied. You didn't say it, but you said that he would reach the Unity Realm and the 5th level Star Pagoda strength in 100,000 years. You purposely made me think that this absolute art is unique and easy to grasp. General Hatchet Palace Master said. This is your wild imagination. You can't blame me. Primal Chaos Hall Master said. Even though General Hatchet Palace Master was speaking to Primal Chaos Hall Master, he wasn't angry. Even though this Dark World absolute art was created by a Unity Realm expert, its world structure was unique. It was created from a different direction, and it had both the first and second style. Following this direction, with their strength, it was entirely possible for them to continue researching. It was indeed related to the cosmos they opened from the primal chaos. Two seniors, I'll be taking my leave. Dongbua Shuiying could see that General Hatchet Palace Master wasn't interested in speaking with him. Naturally, he would not be a hindrance since he had obtained the Origin World Rocks. Time passed. Even though Primal Chaos Hall Master had helped Dongbua Shuiying spread the news, telling many peak existences at the Primal Chaos Realm, including Primal Chaos Hall Master, there were a total of 5 Primal Chaos Giants who learned this absolute art over the past 1,000 years. They learned it. Firstly, it was Primal Chaos Hall Master who spoke. They trusted Primal Chaos Hall Master quite a bit. Secondly, it was the structure of the world that was similar to the final step they wanted to take. Thirdly, it was because Dongbua Shuiying cultivated too quickly. He grasped the absolute art after 100,000 years, and it made them curious. They were curious why another Unity Realm expert could cultivate an absolute art created by a Unity Realm expert in such a short time. What was so unique about it? There were 3 reasons why the few of them came to learn it. Naturally, it was just these few. 150 Origin World Rocks. It wasn't a lot, but it wasn't little either. Those who should have come have come. I haven't heard about the others coming. Primal Chaos Hall Master transmitted to Dongbua Shuiying. I'm afraid you can't continue your business in the Dark World anymore. That's enough. It's all thanks to Hall Master. Dongbua Shuiying transmitted back. Haha, go. Primal Chaos Hall Master laughed before ordering. He was currently accompanying his 4 good friends. The 5 existences who had reached the pinnacle of Primal Chaos Realm were currently chatting. As for Dongbua Shuiying, He left with the joy of earning Origin World rocks. I've earned. After leaving the Primal Chaos Hall, Dongbo Shuang calculated. Even though I've spent 501 Origin World rocks to purchase this absolute art, Forefather Quan Miao has spent 235 Origin World rocks, and the 4 Primal Chaos experts have spent 600 Origin World rocks. Primal Chaos Hall Master has spent 1.5 million contribution points. In total, I've earned 334 Origin World rocks, 1.5 million contribution points, and the original copy of this absolute art. Dongbo Shuang was clear. Instead, he had earned after learning this absolute art. It was mainly because of Primal Chaos Hall Master's help. If he were the one who took the initiative to spread the news, it would be good for General Hatchet Palace Master and the other 3 to learn it. It's time to go to the Star Pagoda. Dongbo Shuang looked up at that towering Star Pagoda. The 5th level of Star Pagoda involved a huge secret. Even his teacher Gu Qi did not tell him about it. He had to pass through the 5th level of Star Pagoda before he was qualified to know about it. Previously, he had been flipping through the books and waiting for those Primal Chaos Giants. He did not want to neglect those Primal Chaos Giants when they came, but he could not rush over immediately. South, Dongbo Shuang turned into a stream of light and flew towards the Star Pagoda. Chapter 858. The mountain range was continuous, and the forest was lush. Dongbo Shuang appeared on this level of the world. He stood on a mountain peak looking down at the world. This was the 4th level of the Star Pagoda world. He had been defeated at this level when he was a void god at the Origin Birth Realm. He is here. Dongbo Shuang turned his gaze towards the distant sky. Chi. Many strands of blood light flew out from the depths of the mountain range. They converged at a single point in midair, before finally forming a creature of a different race, wearing a blood-red armor. His skin was dark, and his entire body seemed to be forged from black metal. He had a head full of black hair that was tied into hundreds of braids. The blood-armored creature tilted his head slightly. Only his single gray eye was looking at Dongbo Shuang. Your strength has increased? You finally dare to challenge me again? The aura he emitted caused the laws of the world to slightly distort. It seemed as if he was born to destroy everything. Can I ask where you came from? Dongbo Shuang asked. You aren't qualified. The blood-armored creature gave a savage grin. It is better for you to die. Hung. He suddenly unleashed a horrifying ripple. This ripple swept out in all directions. Every strand of ripple was filled with a sinister aura. As this ripple swept across, it did not seem to be offensive at all. Yet many flowers and grasses on the mountain range withered. The leaves on the trees turned yellow and fell off. This level of the world instantly became filled with desolation. When this ripple swept across Dongbo Shuang, it was naturally blocked when it was still 500 kilometers away. Dongbo Shuang's law domain was much stronger. Interesting. This is becoming more and more interesting. The blood-armored creature felt that his original plan was useless. He immediately gave up and decided to fight directly. South, he disappeared from the place. Dongbo Shuang remained standing calmly on the mountain peak. Nevertheless, the surrounding 500 kilometers around him had fallen into darkness. Dongbo Shuang turned towards a direction. A figure had appeared in the darkness 500 kilometers away. It was none other than the blood-armored creature that was about to teleport over. Currently, even though he could barely move within the law domain of Dongbo Shuang, his speed was much slower. Under the suppression of the law domain, he could only unleash 10% of his strength. Die! Dongbo Shuang commanded. Who? A world of darkness spanning 5,000 kilometers descended from the illusory world. It turned corporeal and began absorbing the surrounding world energy. The blood-armored life form looked at the descending world of darkness. This pitch-black world was filled with silence, but the blood-armored life form could sense an incomparably terrifying destruction brewing behind this silence. This caused his expression to change involuntarily. He originally thought that even if this little fellow had stepped into the Unity realm, it wouldn't be so easy for him to defeat him. But from the looks of it now, He was ridiculously wrong. The previous time I saw him, he was still at the origin birth realm. How long has it been since he broke through? How could he kill me so easily? An elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple shouldn't have cultivated so quickly, right? The blood-armored creature roared with unwillingness as he rushed towards Dongbo Shuiying. But his current speed was indeed very slow. The world of darkness was rapidly shrinking around the blood-armored creature. When it shrunk to a size of 100 meters, it was like a huge bubble wrapping around the blood-armored creature that was trying his best to fly. Pa! The bubble of darkness exploded. The destructive energy of the world was completely concentrated on the body of the blood-armored creature, causing him to stare fixedly at Dongbo Shuiying. Following that, he was completely annihilated. But when he was annihilated, he turned into a blood light and tunneled back into the continuous mountain range. Let's go to the 5th level. Dongbo Shuiying didn't find it strange. After all, with the experience of the Dark World Master, the first style of dark bubble was sufficient to get through the 5th level. It was naturally easy for him to deal with the 4th level. The 5th level of Star Pagoda had too many special meanings. Getting through this level represented that his strength had reached the boundary of the primal chaos realm. It represented that he was nearly unparalleled amongst those at the Unity realm. As for getting through the 6th and 7th level, those were things that appeared in history. In the current era, there wasn't a single Unity realm 7th level expert, and the number of Unity realm 6th level experts could be counted with one's fingers. The probability of meeting one was even lower than meeting a cosmos god. In the Great Void Heaven Temple, those at the Unity realm who got through this level would become an inner hall elder. Only after getting through this level can I find out about a hidden secret. Shuiying appeared in the middle of a desolate wilderness. Lightning serpents would often strike the ground with crackling sounds. However, these lightning serpents were concentrated in a distant region, while Shuiying's location was tranquil. What exactly is the secret that my teacher Guqi isn't willing to tell me? Dongbo Shuiying felt puzzled. Soon, I will know after defeating the opponent on this level. Dongbo Shuiying was looking forward to it. Chi. In the distant region where lightning struck, a large amount of blood light converged on the ground, forming a blood-armored expert. He had 4 arms, and his skin was silvery white. He was tall and big, and he was currently staring coldly at Dongbo Shuiying. 1. Dongbo Shuiying was slightly startled as he watched this scene. According to his experience, the first level of Star Pagoda would have a gray-armored life form. The second level would have 10 gray-armored enemies, and the third level would have 100 gray-armored enemies. The 4th level would have a blood-armored enemy, and the 5th level would still have a blood-armored enemy, but their appearances were completely different. Unity Realm? Kill. This blood-armored silvery white-skinned 4-armed expert was too lazy to talk nonsense. He immediately acted. Xiao. He directly teleported to within 500 kilometers of Dongbo Shuiying. But he was similarly forced to reveal himself by the law domain. Within the silent and dark law domain, the expression of this 4-armed expert did not change. He continued flying at high speed. His flying speed was too fast. Even under the suppression of the law domain, he was still able to reach the side of Dongbo Shuiying in the blink of an eye. Xiao. Dongbo Shuiying was dumbstruck. He immediately teleported because even with the suppression of the law domain, his flying speed could not match up to the other party. He could only teleport to evade. As for close combat, his current close combat strength was far inferior to the Dark World. Be it the Voidwalker system, or the Tao of Slaughter, or the Tao of Ripple, he had yet to reach the Unity Realm. It was likely that he would be defeated very quickly in close combat. Selah. At the instant the blood-armored 4-armed expert arrived in front of Dongbo Shuiying, all 4 of his arms stretched out at the same time and tore apart the void. Dongbo Shuiying's remnant illusory figure was also shattered. As for Dongbo Shuiying's true body, he teleported within the mirage world. At the same time, he immediately executed the dark bubble. Wah! The dark bubble descended. A dark world descended from the illusory. Furthermore, it turned corporeal and rapidly shrunk. The world energy surged and converged. Even though the blood-armored 4-armed expert was chasing after Shuiying at high speed, the dark bubbles still entangled him. Furthermore, it rapidly shrunk before exploding. Pung! The destructive energy within the bubble was completely concentrated on the enemy. The blood-armored four-armed expert was slightly startled because there were many injuries on his body from the explosion. However, under the circulation of the blood-colored light, his injuries were gradually recovering. "You can even injure me?" The blood-armored four-armed expert had a look of anger on his face as he roared. He teleported 1,000 miles closer to Dongbo Shuang. His speed actually rose explosively once more as he continued to rush towards Dongbo Shuang. In terms of teleportation, Dongbo Shuang had yet to break through to the Unity realm in the Voidwalker system. Hence, his teleportation wasn't as fast as his opponent. Just injuries? Dongbo Shuang was very astonished. He was very clear about the might of the dark bubble. "Bring it on then." Dongbo Shuang's eyes turned cold. After cultivating this absolute art, he finally unleashed it with all his might. Boom 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 boom. A world of darkness descended from the illusory world. After that, an even larger world of darkness enveloped the previous world of darkness as well. The third world of darkness, the fourth world of darkness. There was a total of 6 worlds of darkness, each containing one. They turned corporeal and were frenziedly absorbing the heaven and earth energy. At the same time, they were also shrinking. Ultimately, all 6 bubbles, from the smallest to the largest, enveloped the enemy. Pa, 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 pa. 6 bubbles of darkness exploded one after another. Because with the strength of Dongbo Shuiying's soul, he could only construct 6 worlds of darkness at the same time. Any more, and it would exceed his limits. The 6 bubbles of darkness exploded one after another, and the might of the explosion blasted against the blood-armored enemy in the 5th world, asterisk asterisk. Chapter 859. On. The blood-armored four-armed expert let out a painful roar. After the 6 darkness bubbles were destroyed, his current appearance was revealed. Out of his forearms, only 2 were left. His body was filled with hideous wounds, and even half of his head was missing. He stared at Dongbo Shuiying with eyes filled with anger. However, his heart was filled with sorrow because he knew that he would probably die in the hands of this white-robed youth. Dongbo Shuiying traversed through the void within the mirage world, trying his best to maintain his distance from his opponent. Again, Dongbo Shuiying was also shocked at the toughness of his opponent's body. However, he instantly constructed the darkness world again. Each world enveloped another world, and the 6th darkness world enveloped the enemy once again. Pa pa pa. As it rapidly shrunk, the 6 darkness bubbles exploded one after another. Although it looked very interesting, it was actually very powerful. The darkness world absolute art is indeed powerful. The enemy would lose their lives before they could even get close. Shuiying sighed inwardly. But the weakness is very obvious. The moment an enemy gets close to me, I'll be in big trouble. Regardless of whether it's the first style, Dark Bubble, or the second style, Sky Punishment Edge, they aren't suited for close combat. That Darkness World Master probably lost his life because of his weakness in close combat. Dongbo Shuiying guessed. The Darkness World Master definitely wanted to make up for his weakness. He wanted to make his body stronger, and also improve his close combat. However, there were still some things he was good at, and some things he wasn't. As an ancient cultivator, the Darkness World Master's talent in the illusory realm was heaven-defying. However, he wasn't good in other aspects. Even if he cultivated other systems, it would be very difficult for him to reach a high level. I have to focus on cultivating the Tao of Massacre and Tao of Ripples. I can't slack off on the Voidwalker system either. Dongbo Shuiying thought. His talent in the Tao of Massacre and Tao of Ripples was weaker than the Tao of Mirage. He hadn't reached the Unity realm, and he hadn't grasped the apocalyptic 4th sword. However, being slightly weaker was also relative. He was, after all, a ruler, yet he had grasped the apocalyptic 2nd sword. I have to improve my close combat as well. The Voidwalker system can make up for my body's toughness. In that case, the greatest weakness of the Dark World will be made up for. Dongbo Shuiying thought to himself. At that time, with the combination of my various techniques, my combat prowess will be much stronger than it is now. Although he was thinking in his heart. However, Dongbo Shuiying continued to cast the sixfold world of darkness. Although the blood-armored enemy was infuriated, he couldn't even touch Dongbo Shuiying's body. Instead, he was bombarded with attacks. His injuries continued to worsen. After Dongbo Shuiying had constructed more than 60 dark worlds, the enemies were finally annihilated, and the blood-red light fused into the ground. We finally won. Dongbo Shuiying heaved a sigh of relief. The enemy couldn't get close. He had finally exhausted the enemy to death with the help of the dark bubble. With such a powerful physique and fearsome speed, even Dongbo Shuiying would feel pressured if they were to engage in close combat. At the 5th level of Star Pagoda, a figure suddenly appeared amidst the thunder. He was none other than the hunchbacked old man, Forefather Tianyu. Forefather. Dongbo Shuiying was still reminiscing about the previous battle. When he saw Forefather Tianyu appearing, he immediately bowed respectfully. Dongbo Shuiying. Forefather Tianyu nodded. When he saw how Dongbo Shuiying dealt with the assassination, he knew that this brat would definitely pass through the 5th level. There has been a rumor going around within the Great Void Heaven Temple that one would know of a huge secret after passing through the 5th level of Star Pagoda. Forefather Tianyu chuckled. Yes, Dongbo Shuiying said. When I was with the other inner hall elders, they would occasionally mention it. But because of my presence, they immediately stopped talking. This is the rule. Be it my Great Void Heaven Temple, Primogenita Island, Jade Light Sacred Territory, or even the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World and Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, a total of 6 holy grounds. All of them have to pass through the 5th level of Star Pagoda. Forefather Tianyu said. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. Speaking of which, we have to talk about the primitive ancient sacred world. The eyes of Forefather Tianyu were misty. He slowly said, a very long time ago, there was only the largest primitive ancient sacred world. The laws of the primitive ancient sacred world are much stronger than any other sacred world, and the suppression on power is much stronger too. But similarly, many life forms are reproducing and cultivating within. Dongbo Shuiying was startled. The laws were much stronger than the current 5 great sacred worlds, and the suppression was much stronger? The primitive ancient sacred world nurtured many experts, of which many had reached the final realm. Cosmos gods would often battle. Even though the shockwaves would spread across 50 million kilometers, it isn't considered much to the primitive ancient sacred world. Forefather Tianyu said, that group of cosmos gods in the past did not care about it. Along with the increase in the number of final realm existences, and their strength increasing, the scale of the battles would gradually become bigger. Dongbo Shuiying listened. He knew that there were differences in strength between the final realm existences. Those at the lower levels like Ancestor Bone were practically at the bottom. Those at the middle level like Forefather Tianyu, Sword Master, Void Primogenitor, and others. Lord Lo Cheng's combat strength was roughly at this level. Those at the higher levels were the unparalleled Sacred Master, Ancestor Mother, Wuxia, and others. That final great battle was too powerful. Even the laws of the primitive ancient sacred world could not suppress it. Pung! The primitive ancient sacred world shattered. Forefather Tianyu shook his head. That is truly an unprecedented calamity. Those final realm existences who participated in the battle did not think that their battle would cause the entire primitive ancient sacred world to shatter. Hence, they were not prepared at all. As a result, countless lives in the primitive ancient sacred world perished during the destruction. Only the strong could survive when the primitive ancient sacred world was destroyed. That time, I was still a primal chaos expert. I could only save some of the life forms around me. To the countless life forms in the primitive ancient sacred world, I was just a drop in the ocean. Forefather Tianyu sighed. Dongbo Shuiying felt a chill down his spine. Almost all life forms in the primitive ancient sacred world were wiped out. That was many times more than the number of life forms in a cosmos. This was indeed an unprecedented calamity. After the primitive ancient sacred world shattered, the primal chaos void expanded in all directions. It is still expanding now. Forefather Tianyu said. The region of the primal chaos void is constantly expanding. Dongbo Shuang, what do you think the final outcome will be if it keeps growing bigger? Forefather Tianyu asked. Dongbo Shuang was stunned. A bubble would keep growing bigger and eventually explode. If a cosmos kept growing bigger, there would most likely be a problem. We do not know what the outcome will be, because we have yet to see it. Forefather Tianyu said. But we all feel that it will not be a good outcome. Furthermore, after the primitive ancient sacred world shattered, a group of unique life forms were born by the boundary of the primal chaos void. Forefather Tianyu said. They seem to be born for the sake of destruction. We call them the destruction devils. They are born for the sake of destruction? Dongbo Shuang felt puzzled. They only appeared after the primitive ancient sacred world shattered? Forefather Tianyu nodded. Right. Their aura is completely counter to ordinary life forms like us. They do not seem to have any other desires other than destruction, killing everything. We suspect that after the primitive ancient sacred world shattered, these life forms were naturally born by the operating laws. They might be trying to destroy us. They might be trying to reduce the pressure on the operating laws. Or they might be trying to let the endless primal chaos void return to nothingness. These are all conjectures. Even if it returns to nothingness, it could give birth to a new primitive ancient sacred world. This is unrelated to us. Hence, it is impossible for us to die just like that. Forefather Tianyu said. At the end of the void, there are several final realm existences guarding over the place. There are also large batches of primal chaos and unity realm experts, heading there just for the sake of killing these destruction devils. The enemies you met in the Star Pagoda are destruction devils. Naturally, they have been refined into puppet life forms. Forefather Tianyu said. From the first level to the 9th level, there are destruction devils. Occasionally, some destruction devils would surpass the 9th level, and they are existences comparable to cosmos gods. Dongbo Shuang was dumbstruck. There were actually existences comparable to cosmos gods. No wonder it required several final realm existences to guard over the place. If they could not resist against the destruction devils, this primal chaos void and 5 great sacred worlds could indeed be completely destroyed. This is the price. The price of that battle in the past. Forefather Tianyu sneered. It's a pity that Sacred Master and Ancestor Mother are too selfish. The two of them have never gone to the boundary of the void to fight. They aren't even willing to let their subordinates do so. It is still the other 3 great sacred worlds that can resist against the destruction devils. Sacred Master seems to have forgotten. That battle in the past was started by him. Dongbo Shuang was startled. Sacred Master and Ancestor Mother actually did not contribute against the destruction devils at the boundary of the void? Chapter 860. Forefather Tian, you looked at Dongbo Shuang before chuckling. You don't have to be in a rush to the boundary of the void. That place is too dangerous. Usually, only those who have reached a bottleneck, or those who wish to temper themselves would be willing to take the risk. There are benefits to fighting with the destruction devils too. When we kill the destruction devils, they will emit a unique energy that seems to be completely opposite to our soul. The moment we absorb it, our soul will be strengthened. That unique feeling is similar to absorbing Origin World rocks. Absorbing Origin World rocks? Dongbo Shuang was startled. Origin World rocks were formed after the origin source of the primitive ancient sacred world shattered. They were mystical and precious, and were useful even to cosmos gods. Right. Even though their natures are different, the benefits to the soul are similar. Forefather Tianyu said, the stronger the destruction devil, the greater the benefits to the soul. On the other hand, the materials on the body of the destruction devils are all rare and valuable. Previously, the most precious Chung Kun, from the Chung Kun convention that you participated in, was the skin of a 9th-level destruction devil. Dongbo Shuang nodded. The destruction devils were a huge danger, yet every single one of them was a treasure. But one had to be alive to obtain these treasures. After all, when both parties fought, a slight carelessness would result in the deaths of both parties. The reason why I have to let you guys know after passing the 5th level is because I am worried that some weaker cultivators would still head to the boundary of the void. Those who are weak would simply be sending themselves to death. Forefather Tianyu shook his head. Even though there are some extremely weak destruction devils in the Star Pagoda, they would usually work together at the boundary of the void. You are still young. The cultivation period is short. Don't go for the time being. Forefather Tianyu said. Properly cultivate, and it would be best if you could reach the primal chaos realm before heading there. By then, the chances of you dying would be very low. Understood. Dongbo Shuang acknowledged. What a joke. He temporarily did not have any thoughts of going there. That place was too dangerous. In the Great Void Heaven Temple, reaching the 5th level was the lowest combat power. Even though he desired to temper himself, he did not wish to die. If he died, what would happen to his wife and children in his hometown Cosmos? He still had to send some cultivation materials back. Before settling down his wife and children, he would naturally not consider going to such a dangerous place. Patriarch, Dongbo Shuang said, I would like to ask, to a stage for Universe God, which items are the best to assist in cultivation? The higher the price, the better. This was because Stage 4 world deities were relatively weak, and their souls were weak as well. There were some extremely powerful cultivation aids that the soul of a Stage 4 world deity would not be able to withstand. Consuming them would only result in their soul shattering. Thus, it had to be gentle enough and suitable for Stage 4 world deities. Oh, suitable for Stage 4 world deities? Forefather Tianyu pondered for a moment before saying, in terms of help, the Eternal Heart and the Origin World Fruit would be the most helpful. Unfortunately, they are priceless treasures that I couldn't even hope for. How about this? I've already sent you the information of the other 10 most suitable cultivation aids. However, they're all quite expensive. Yes, Dongbo Shuang had already received a piece of information through his communication token. First, Scarlet Cloud Pomegranate Core. Purchase price around 6,000 Origin World Stones. Second, Ancient Sacred 9 Stones. Purchase price around 35,000 Origin World Stones. This was also the most precious item in the top 10. Actually, most Cosmos gods would use it, and it would be too wasteful for a Stage 4 world deity to use it. Third, Sandfire Ancestral Leaf. Purchase price around 5,000 Origin World Stones. 10th, Destruction Devil Spider Golden Silk. A set of price around 2,000 Origin World Stones. So expensive. Dongbo Shuang felt the pressure after reading through it. The cheapest item in the top 10 was priced at 2,000 Origin World Stones. Scarlet Cloud Pomegranate Core is my first target, Dongbo Shuang thought. He knew that the pressure was huge because he had to buy 2 sets, and that meant he had to spend more than 10,000 Origin World Stones. To Primal Chaos Realm Giants, this was practically a total of all their treasures. Naturally, those who stood at the peak of the Primal Chaos Realm, and those like Ancestor Desert, who specialized in earning Origin World Stones, were not limited to this. But to Dongbo Shuang, who was merely at the Unity Realm, it was still too high for him to reach. He had earned quite a lot during this period, but it was unlikely that anyone would learn how to buy and sell the Dark World inheritance anymore. This was even with the help of Primal Chaos Hall Master. As for destroying the base of the ancient sacred religion, it was considered fortunate that he could do it once. After the ancient sacred religion suffered such a loss, they would definitely become more vigilant and careful, and the difficulty of finding their base would increase exponentially. How do I earn? Dongbo Shuang felt the pressure too. Actually, this was the pressure felt by almost every expert. Even Cosmos gods who were high above did not dislike having too many Origin World Stones. They were also willing to consume the origin energy from the primitive ancient sacred world, since they wanted to become stronger. Like his teacher Guqi, he had yet to cultivate the walker's hidden secret to the final grand perfection. There was still some gap between him and Void Primogenitor. Why? Is it very expensive? Why don't you find those cheaper ones? Forefather Tian Yu had a smile on his face. He guessed that since Dongbo Shuang was so young, his family should still be alive. Hence, it was most likely for him to search for treasures suitable for stage for world deities to aid his cultivation. Forefather, Dongbo Shuang asked, I've previously bought the unique copy of this Dark World Absolute Art. I've heard that the Great Void Heaven Temple is willing to buy it too? Naturally, Forefather Tian Yu nodded. But because it has been sold once, the Great Void Heaven Temple can only buy it for 5 million contribution points. 5 million contribution points? Dongbo Shuang muttered inwardly. That was too little. He could earn 150 Origin World Rocks just by killing those primal chaos giants who stood at the peak. Naturally, such a good thing would most likely not happen again. Let me think about it, Dongbo Shuang said. No rush. You can sell it to the Sky Palace at any time. It's always this price. Forefather Tian Yu said. The internal operations of the Great Void Heaven Temple had its own rules. It was impossible for them to casually give a high price, because their contribution points could be exchanged for large amounts of precious treasures. The Destruction Devil Spider Golden Silk is not bad. Getting a set of it is already a huge pressure for you, Forefather Tian Yu said before his figure dissipated. He left the Star Pagoda. Dongbo Shuang sighed inwardly. The Destruction Devil Spider Golden Silk was something that he had in stock, because it was a material used by the Destruction Devils. For instance, the Scarlet Cloud Pomegranate Core was something that he had to search for. It was extremely hard to find. As for the price, it was the approximate selling price in the past. Even if it is the Destruction Devil Spider Golden Silk, 2 sets would cost 4,000 Origin World Rocks. Dongbo Shuang thought, I'll take it slow. Before I settle down Jing Qiu and the others, it isn't appropriate for me to risk my life at the boundary of the void. Then the only way I can earn Origin World Rocks is to fight with the ancient sacred religion and the ancestor mother religion. Dongbo Shuang flipped through the many missions within the Great Void Heaven Temple, through the communication talisman. Fighting with the ancient sacred religion and the ancestor mother religion. This was an eternal topic. In history, the most cosmos gods died in battles with the 2 great religions. The ancient sacred world and the ancestor mother world are the territories of the enemies. Going there is no different from courting death. That place is 10 to 100 times more dangerous than the boundary of the void. Dongbo Shuang thought. As for the other 3 sacred worlds, they belong to our side. The ancient sacred religion and the ancestor mother religion have been infiltrating in the dark and are completely suppressed. It is hard for us to contribute much. Destroying a base would only give us so little contribution points. Hence, it is better for me to go to the primal chaos void. Dongbo Shuang thought. Both parties did not have absolute control over the primal chaos void. Over here, Dongbo Shuang soon set his sights on the biggest land in the primal chaos void, the 9-Cloud Great Land. The 9-Cloud Great Land was a slightly bigger piece when the primitive ancient sacred world shattered. Its surface area was 1/20th the size of the 7-star oceanic sacred world. One had to know that the 7-star oceanic sacred world was vast. It was practically boundless. Even if it was 1/20th the size, this 9-Cloud Great Land was still ridiculously huge. There were countless beings living within. It was also the place where the ancient sacred religion and the ancestor mother religion fought the most intensely with the other 3 great sacred worlds. The more intense the battle, the more opportunities to earn contribution points would be. If there was a day when they could wipe out the other 2 great religions in the 9-Cloud Great Land, much less the Scarlet Cloud Pomegranate Core, even the Eternal Heart, would be something Wuxia would be willing to refine. Chapter 861. There were some final realm existences who were not willing to participate in the battle between the 2 superpowers like Myriad Realm Tavern Master. The few of them would usually reside in the primal chaos void, because in the past when the primitive ancient sacred world shattered, for instance, a certain fragment or a unique location within the primitive ancient sacred world was not destroyed in the explosion and drifted into the primal chaos void. Hence, in the vast primal chaos void, other than ordinary land and cosmos, there were some unique locations where cosmos gods were willing to reside for a long period of time. The Nine-Cloud Great Land was the largest fragment of the primitive ancient sacred world other than the ancient sacred world. There was also a cosmos god, Junyifazu, who resided there. Although Junyifazu lived there, it was quite aloof and did not participate in the battle between the two forces. In addition, there were too few final realm existences. They either had to protect the sacred world or head to the boundary of the void. The Nine-Cloud Great Land, which was only 1/20th the size of the 7-star oceanic sacred world, was only at the primal chaos realm. And as an inner hall elder, Dongbua Shui-Ying had a protective treasure. The moment he activated it, he would be able to hold on for some time against a primal chaos realm giant. As long as he was careful, the Nine-Cloud Great Land was more suitable for him to fight. However, I have too few tricks up my sleeve. I only have the dark bubble. And once I use it, the enemy will immediately know my identity. Dongbua Shui-Ying thought to himself. Due to the fact that there were traces of powerhouses from the ancient saint cult involved in the assassination, the other party could easily observe the situation of the battle and knew about his dark bubble technique. If an expert really went to the Myriad Worlds Tavern to hire an assassin to deal with him, if he were to be exposed in the Nine-Cloud Great Land, it was highly possible that he would attract the primal chaos experts of the ancient sacred religion to attack him. It's best not to expose yourself. Dongbua Shui-Ying pondered. If they met with any danger in the 7-star oceanic sacred world, Forefather Tianyu, Sword Master and the others would be able to descend immediately. But the distant Nine-Cloud Great Land was located deep within the primal chaos void, and it would take some time to rush over. Let's go challenge the 6th floor. Dongbua Shui-Ying soared into the sky. Following the hole in the sky, he flew up to the higher 6th level. The 6th level of the Star Tower was a desolate desert. In the desert, there were scattered green plants with tenacious life force. Suddenly, a blood-colored flowing light appeared in the desert. The blood-colored flowing light gathered and formed an enchanting lady wearing blood-colored armor. Another one? Dongbua Shui-Ying mumbled to himself. There was only a single blood-armored enemy at the 4th, 5th, and 6th level. But after chatting with Forefather Tianyu, Shui-Ying knew that the Destruction Devils had varying strengths, from the 1st level Star Pagoda to the Cosmos God level. A little fellow at the Unity Realm? The blood-armored enchanting lady chuckled. At that moment, a majestic enchanting pink aura spread out, filling up the entire 6th level of Star Pagoda in an instant. No matter how strong the life force of the green plants in the desert was, they withered in an instant. This pink aura made Dongbua Shui-Ying feel threatened. Although his law domain could withstand it, it was clearly strenuous. Hua! The blood-colored enchanting lady chuckled. Her figure turned into 9. With a flash, she tunneled into the law domain of Dongbua Shui-Ying. The 9 blood-colored figures charged over at the same time. The battle was lost very quickly. Even though Dongbua Shui-Ying could not discern the true body of the enemy, he could still unleash 6 dark bubbles. Some dark bubbles could envelop 2 figures of the enemy at the same time, allowing him to attack at once, destroying the other 8 incarnations of the enemy. But the remaining true body was not injured at all under the attack of a single dark bubble. Furthermore, it had already killed its way to the side of Dongbua Shui-Ying. Dongbua Shui-Ying was not confident of his teleportation. He immediately activated his protective treasure and admitted defeat. No other choice. This was how absolute arts from the dark world were. Usually the enemy would die while they were still far away. But if the enemy were to get close to them, they would most likely be defeated. He flew out of the Star Pagoda. I should properly cultivate and improve my other aspects. If I were to head to the Nine-Cloud Great Land with just this move, it would be too disadvantageous for me. Furthermore, this move is too easy to recognize. Dongbua Shui-Ying thought. For instance, the 13 apocalyptic swords could transform into all sorts of close combat killing moves, making it hard to recognize them. But the dark bubble could be recognized with a single glance. In the following days, Dongbo Shuang was not in a rush. He would frequently flip through the books in the myriad Elephant Palace Hall. Even though he had memorized some of them, it was different when he looked at the original. Originally, there were traces left behind by the original expert, and it was more suitable for him to experience. He would also occasionally discuss the Tao with some inner hall elders, and even spar with them. After 2,000 years passed in the Star Pagoda, Dongbo Shuang made ample preparations and entered the Palace Hall of Time to cultivate again. The price of a Unity Realm expert in the Palace Hall of Time was much higher. 100 times acceleration of 100 million years would require a total of 25 Origin World rocks. Fortunately, it could be exchanged for 250,000 contribution points. It was relatively worth it to use contribution points. Dongbo Shuang was clearly calculative about this. He had to save up Origin World rocks. After all, his target was the Scarlet Cloud Pomegranate Core. Time passed. Currently, he was at the Unity Realm, and his soul was much stronger than when he was at the Origin Birth Realm. Comprehending the Walker's hidden secret was much faster. During the first few days of entering the Palace Hall of Time, Dongbo Shuang mainly focused on cultivating the Walker's hidden secret. Because back in the Chiya Incense Wood Cultivation Room, in the Celestial Water City, he had already cultivated the Walker's hidden secret to the point where he was just a step away from breaking through. Everything was as expected. After cultivating for 66,000 years in the Palace Hall of Time, he broke through to the 31st level of the Walker's hidden secret. He had officially stepped into the Unity Realm in the Void Walker system. Hung, within the Palace Hall of Time, on the green grassland planet, Dongbo Shuang sat cross-legged on the grassland. There was a layer of pitch-black primal chaos void energy on the surface of his body. His body was currently undergoing a metamorphosis, and he was stepping into another huge realm. Stepping into the next level is indeed different. Dongbo Shuang opened his mouth. He spat out a rainbow-colored light. The moment he spat it out, the rainbow-colored light started dissipating. Now, I should focus on comprehending the laws and profound mysteries. The reason why he chose to improve the Void Walker system was firstly, because he was close to breaking through. Secondly, the metamorphosis of this system would be beneficial to his soul. A stronger soul would allow him to cultivate faster. Dongbo Shuang was very confident of himself. Even though he might be weaker in the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple, as compared to the Tao of Mirage, it wasn't hard for him to reach the 5th level of Star Pagoda strength in these two aspects as long as he spent some time. After all, he had previously relied on the 13 apocalyptic swords to get through the 3rd level at the Origin Birth Realm. Time passed. The Great Void Heaven Temple would recruit disciples once every 100 million years in the 12 primal chaos cities. Close to 90 million years after Dongbo Shuang entered closed-door cultivation, a new batch of disciples arrived. The Great Void Heaven Temple. The group of true God disciples looked at the many floating mountains in the distance, especially at the towering palace located at the center. The light from the palace illuminated the entire space. That light shone on the bodies of these true God disciples, causing them to feel even more nervous and excited. They had arrived. They had finally succeeded in entering the holy ground Great Void Heaven Temple. How difficult was it to enter the holy ground? All of them were extremely talented and had experienced many trials. You have just entered the Sky Palace, so you must not barge in recklessly. Some places are where the violet-robed disciples stay. Some are where the golden-robed disciples and inner hall elders and hall masters stay. Barging in without permission will result in severe punishment. The leading outer hall elder said, "Follow me." Amidst this large group of disciples, there was a couple that came from the Celestial Water City, Lei Chen and Qing Rua. "I wonder where is Elder Dongbo staying?" the relatively muscular Lei Chen asked. The two of them had passed the trials after much difficulty, and became the most ordinary disciples of the Great Void Heaven Temple. "Elder Dongbo, you know Elder Dongbo?" a true God disciple asked. "Elder Dongbo has done us a great favor," Lei Chen and Qing Rua said. "The two of you are quite fortunate to be acquainted with Elder Dongbo," this true God disciple said. Elder Dongbo is an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple. He immediately got through the 5th level of Star Pagoda after breaking through to the Unity Realm. His talent is heaven-defying. And in the future, he will likely become a hall master of our Great Void Heaven Temple. Yen Xiong aimed to become an existence like Elder Dongbo. He really dares to say that. He is truly arrogant. Quite a few of these true God disciples had some background. After all, with a background and a good cultivation environment, it would be more likely for them to pass the trials of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Those with some background had heard of that heaven-defying Elder Dongbo. Quite a few of them were secretly hoping that they could become as dazzling as Elder Dongbo. But they could only think about it in their hearts. If they were to say it out in public, they would still be mocked by others. After all, since the establishment of the Great Void Heaven Temple until now, the number of people who were as heaven-defying as Elder Dongbo could be counted with one's fingers. After Lei Chen and Qing Ruo stayed in the Great Void Heaven Temple, they went to visit Dongbo Shuiying. It's a pity that Dongbo Shuiying was in closed-door cultivation. This time, Dongbo Shuiying was in closed-door cultivation for the longest period of time. A total of 180 million years. This was the time in the outside world. Dongbo Shuiying had cultivated for a total of 18 billion years within the Palace Hall of Time. It was because he was going to travel to the distant Nine-Cloud Great Land in the primal chaos void. Naturally, he had to make sufficient preparations in all aspects. He was temporarily stuck at a bottleneck and could no longer advance. Only then did he choose to leave. Who? Outside the Palace Hall of Time, a white-robed Dongbo Shuiying appeared. Chapter 862. Great Void Heaven Temple Lingyun Peak. The Lingyun Peak was one of the many floating mountains, and it was chosen by Dongbo Shuiying as his residence. There was only a single cave abode on the entire peak, and there was only a single puppet servant. Dongbo Shuiying transformed into a streak of light and landed at the entrance of the cave abode located halfway up the Lingyun Peak. Master. The green-robed female servant greeted respectfully. She looked at her master curiously. Her master was indeed unique. Most inner hall elders would either roam the outside world or spend most of their time cultivating in their cave abodes. However, her master spent most of his time cultivating in the Hall of Time. That place was extremely valuable, and he had spent 450,000 contribution points just to cultivate for 180 million years. It was simply too extravagant. Other inner hall elders would occasionally go there, but they wouldn't dare to be so extravagant all the time. Dongbo Shuiying entered his cave abode and found a pavilion by the side to sit down. He sat down and drank alone while waiting silently. The green-robed female servant was slightly puzzled, but she still waited respectfully by the side. In just a short moment, Elder Dongbo. A voice sounded from outside. Let him in. Dongbo Shuiying instructed. The green-robed female servant hurriedly went out to welcome him. As an inner hall elder, one shouldn't barge into his cave abode without permission. Very soon, a young man walked in with an ordinary-looking storage bracelet in his hands. Elder Dongbo. This is the item that the hall master ordered me to send over. Dongbo Shuiying stretched out his hand, and the storage bracelet flew into his palm. He easily refined it and inspected it. Within the storage bracelet, there were a total of 3,600 daggers. This was a set of flying daggers, and it was known as the Cold Shadow. These flying daggers were imbued with arrays, and they could attack as one. However, Dongbo Shuiying didn't care about it. What he cared about was the number of flying daggers in this set. It was perfect for him to perfect one of his absolute moves, the Fish Dragon Kill. This set of high-graded Void God flying dagger weapons might be huge in quantity, but it was not enough because every single weapon required very little materials. Shuiying was quite satisfied with spending 600,000 contribution points. After all, the Terminus weapon would be even more powerful if it was attached to a powerful weapon. Just relying on the Terminus energy attack was still too weak. Apart from the dagger, there were a few other miscellaneous items in the storage bracelet, including the flying dagger. The total cost was 1,500,000 merit points. Although it was expensive, these were all treasures. Even if he didn't use them, he could sell them off in the future. He wouldn't be at a disadvantage. You may leave, Dongbo Shuang ordered. Yes. The young man bowed respectfully and retreated. Nine Cloud Great Land. Dongbo Shuang closely followed and began receiving missions through the communication talisman. Experts from the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World, Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, and Myriad Ancient Sacred World had entered the 9-Cloud Great Land. The ancient sacred religion and ancestor mother religion had similarly infiltrated into the 9-Cloud Great Land. After accepting the mission, Dongbo Shuang spent some time familiarizing himself with these flying knives. And after he finished a pot of wine, he stood up. If a friend comes to see me, tell them that I'm out, and I'll be out for a long time. Dongbo Shuang said. Yes. The green-robed female servant respectfully acknowledged. At the same time, she mumbled inwardly, this master of mine really can't stop. He had just come out from closed-door cultivation, yet he was about to leave again. The other inner hall elders were much more relaxed. Who? The green-robed female servant sent off Dongbo Shuang with her eyes. What she did not know was that while other experts did not care about time, Dongbo Shuang had been cultivating in the Palace Hall of Time for the sake of saving time. He was someone who could not afford to waste time. This time when Dongbo Shuang came out of closed-door cultivation, many true God disciples saw him. Naturally, some inner hall elders invited Dongbo Shuang to meet them. Even Lei Chenqing Rua and Lei Chenqing Rua came to pay their respects. It's a pity that only when they came did they find out that Dongbo Shuang had left. And it seemed to have been a long time. To a powerful cultivator, saying that it had been a long time was an exaggeration. The 9-Cloud Great Land was vast and contained many experts. Even if a primal chaos giant tore through the time-space tunnel and rushed over, it would take a very long time to travel across the entire 9-Cloud Great Land. Furthermore, the strongest existence living in seclusion on the 9-Cloud Great Land, the cosmos god Junyi Fazu, had long given the order to forbid the construction of spatial teleportation arrays. Just like how the 5 great sacred worlds had a large number of teleportation arrays, it was hard for one to travel, yet the 9-Cloud Great Land did not have any teleportation arrays, making it even harder to travel. This was also the reason why Junyi Fazu had increased the difficulty for the 2 superpowers to infiltrate the 9-Cloud Great Land. Without the teleportation arrays, the true apex experts sent over by the 2 superpowers were few in number. As for the ordinary experts, they could not shake the entire 9-Cloud Great Land. After all, there were many native experts, and there were even primal chaos giants emerging. Hung Long Long, a white-robed white-haired male figure appeared in the distorted space. Following that, the surrounding space began recovering. 9-Cloud Great Land. This white-robed white-haired male wore a silver mask on his face, turning his hair white. Furthermore, he wore a mask so that his appearance would not be recognized. He was still quite vigilant against the ancient sacred religion. Looking around him, the law suppression of this world was extremely strong. It was only slightly weaker than the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. Furthermore, the vast aura of this world seemed more comfortable. It is indeed a remnant piece of the primitive ancient sacred world. Even though it is slightly smaller than the sacred world, the aura here is nourishing to the soul. It is of great help to some of the weaker life forms. As for void gods, it is negligible. Dongbo Shuang deduced inwardly. The cultivation at the lowest level of the 9-Cloud Great Land was much more formidable than in the sacred world. It is easy to reach the 9-Cloud Great Land, since Inquisitive Sky Hall Master helped me teleport over. But returning back is troublesome. Dongbo Shuang felt helpless. There were very few primal chaos giants in the entire 9-Cloud Great Land. There was not a single one who knew how to teleport through an ultra-long distance. Even though Junyi Fazu was a cosmos god, he could not do it. If he wanted to return to the Great Void Heaven Temple, he could only travel through the primal chaos void. Amen. 9-Cloud Great Land. The danger here isn't as high as the boundary of the void. It is still suitable for me. I'll do my best and earn as many Origin World rocks as possible here. Dongbo Shuang thought. South Dongbo Shuiying's figure disappeared. He began moving through the void. Even though his current attainments in the Voidwalker lineage allowed him to tear through a time-space tunnel, as Dongbo Shuang had to observe carefully, he had to determine his surrounding position first. Inquisitive Sky Hall Master's ultra-long distance teleportation would result in a huge deviation. Furthermore, the map of the Nine-Cloud Great Land given by the Great Void Heaven Temple was too simple. It only recorded some important locations and superpowers. As for the weaker superpowers, there were too many changes. A luxurious ship was flying in the sky. There were many protectors on board. These protectors were all at the true god level, and the captain of the protectors standing by the side of the ship was even at the void god level. There are a total of 9 void gods on this ship, and there is even a Unity Realm expert? He must be quite a superpower. Dongbo Shuiying, who was currently traveling through the void to ascertain his location, immediately discovered this ship through the void. Those at the Unity Realm were considered experts in the 5 great sacred worlds, and were naturally experts in the 9-Cloud Great Land too. If they were in small places like the Primal Chaos Land, or within the cosmos, they would be unparalleled overlords. Impudent. When Dongbo Shuiying appeared in front of the ship, the protectors on the ship could not help but roar out. Even though they roared, these protectors understood that this white-robed, white-haired male was not someone to be trifled with, because most Unity Realm experts could teleport. Naturally, some Origin Birth Realm experts who specialized in the void could do it too. No matter what, he was considered an expert. Very soon, a group of people came out from within the ship. The leader was a red-robed girl. Her eyes were bright and beautiful. She looked at the white-robed, white-haired male outside the ship. Who are you? You dare to obstruct the worship of my Sky Sword Mountain? The red-robed girl said. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.